breaking news from the NFL, where Aaron Rodgers is returning to the Steelers next season. Our NFL insider Jonathan Jones reports Rodgers is signing a one-year deal with Pittsburgh. The deal is worth $22 million guaranteed and $25 million with incentives per NFL Network. It will mark Rodgers' second season in the Steel City and his first under new head coach Mike McCarthy. The two won a Super Bowl together in Green Bay. Last season, Rodgers led the Steelers to the AFC North title, but they were beaten in the wild card round at home by the Texans. Rodgers will turn 43 in December.
Well, a 43-year-old quarterback making $22 million. If you got it, you might as well flaunt it. Aaron Rodgers not going anywhere quite yet, but we can assume that this will be the last hoorah, the last go for Aaron Rodgers in Pittsburgh. In the NFL, I would not imagine him to play much more. This is a one-year deal that he signed to return. That was the big news over the weekend. But welcome into Wire to Wire on a Monday. It is an overreaction Monday. I'm Cole Bryson. So good to be with you on this beautiful, and I mean beautiful, Monday afternoon. Diesel on vacation this week, so I am solo with the Tolos, and I want to hear from you at 844-326-3663. The Joy Law Firm text line is open. You can also watch the show, as 30 of you are already doing, on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at The Fan Upstate. We begin the show with a little audio blitz, but a big show coming your way. We've got Braves to get to. We've got Grayson Mann of TigerNet.com. There was big news today when it comes to the recruiting world for Clemson. Dabo landing a big-time recruit up in Clemson today. Also, Jack Veltri joining the show in the 5 p.m. hour to talk Gamecock baseball, the coaching search, right before there is this one game left. I don't know that this game means anything tomorrow against Tennessee, who's a top 25 team in the SEC tournament. However, the Gamecocks, their season is not done yet, even though it is done. The regular season's done. We'll get to that. A lot to get to. It's Overreaction Monday. If you want a chance to co-host a little bit of the show with me, well, what are you waiting on? Pick up the phone, call the show, 844-326-3663. You are more than welcome to get in on the conversation. Texter already getting in and saying on the Joy Law Firm text line, this comes from the 869, by the way, Will Howard would have been a better option than Aaron, says the texter from the 869, going back to that audio I opened the show with when it comes to Aaron Rodgers. We'll get back into the Aaron Rodgers conversation in a little while, but wanted to start the show with some of the biggest audio pieces from the weekend. Clemson, South Carolina, a little NBA, former Gamecock now taking on a new sport, if you will, golf PGA Championship. A lot of complaining in the PGA Championship. Have you heard all the complaining from Rory and Scotty and Justin Thomas? My goodness, I don't know where I stand, what to think. Some of the game's best were not happy this past weekend. A little all-star race for you NASCAR fans. Clemson softball, John Rittman audio coming up in this segment. And a side note there, a tough weekend for our in-state teams altogether. Like Clemson baseball, they lost 2 of 3. South Carolina baseball got swept. Clemson softball, their season comes to an end in their regional. Gamecock softball, their region comes to an end against UCLA. 2 years in a row now they've lost to UCLA twice, or to end the season. North Greenville baseball, Landon Powell and those guys go down to Francis Marion not once but twice. A rough weekend for our in-state schools, but all things come to an end, they say. Texter gets in from the 814 and says, we do miss, or hashtag we miss Dewey. I like that hashtag. I don't know, Texter, what's happened to him, where he's been, if he's alive, but hopefully Dewey is okay. It's been a while, and we do miss you, Dewey, if you're listening. Eric Hines gets in on the Joy Law Firm text line. They're coming in quick at 844-326-3663. Eric Hines says, real quick, Cole, Mad Mex is pumped about Aaron Rodgers signing his one-year contract. Well, who is Mad Mex? And Eric, do you have to talk on behalf of Mad Mex? Why doesn't Mad Mex ever call or text the show, huh? And are you being sarcastic about that? about Aaron Rodgers and the $22 million contract. So I'm assuming Mad Mex is a Steelers fan. Is that right, Eric? I know you're a Eagles fan, but I don't know about Mad Mex. Brewfighter on YouTube gets in. He says, I was at the Braves game Friday night for the Yaz walk-off against the Greenville Drive. I mean, Boston Red Sox. That's funny. That is funny. Yastrzemski finally contributed, huh, Brewfighter? Yeah, I take back everything I've said about that guy because we'll get into the Braves in the very next segment, so stay with us, Brewfighter on YouTube. But, man, that was a fun one. I'm jealous. I'm very envious of you if you were at that Friday night game because that was a fun ending. Saturday night could have been a fun ending as well, the way that ball bounced off Chapman's ankle, whatever it was, his leg. And then Sunday, obviously, the Braves taking care of business there. Texter from the 680 gets in and says, Tolo, yeehaw, Cowboy Cole. We're mixing stations there, Texter. I guess so. That's okay. Eric gets back in and says, because he's driving. And yes, Mad Mex is a Steelers fan, sadly. So condolences to you, Mad Mex. R.I.P. to your seat. No, I'm just kidding. We never know. You never know. It might be okay. We'll get into Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers coming up at 3:45. So just a few minutes from now, we will get to Aaron Rodgers. But where do we go first? Do we get to golf first? All this whining and complaining and this audio blitz starting the show off with some audio from the weekend. Let's start with the crying and the complaining from the PGA Championship. Let's first start with Rory, a bunched leaderboard. He says it's not good for the sport. Well, why is that? Can you explain, Rory?
The only thing I would say is I think a bunched leaderboard like this, I think it's a sign of not a great setup. I think when it's as bunched as it is, because it hasn't really enabled anyone to separate themselves, it's like it's easy to make a ton of pars, hard to make birdies, and not that it's hard to make bogeys, but it feels like bogey's the worst score you're going to shoot on any one hole. There's not a lot of hazards. There's not, I think the setup is fine. Like the golf course is good. The pins were tough and the wind was what it was as well. But I just think, I've always felt like really good setups it starts to spread the field a bit. And not great setups sort of bring everyone together. And I feel like that's what's happened the last 2 days.
So a not great setup, and maybe a golf guy out there can explain to me a little bit better what he means. I understand what he means, but if there's any truth or validity to that, a not great setup brings more guys together? Is that what he said right there at the end?
Always felt like really good setups it starts to spread the field a bit. And not great setups sort of bring everyone together. And I feel like that's what's happened the last 2 days.
Is that true? Is that true? It wasn't a great setup, so the field was bunched up? I don't know. I mean, again, I'm not a golfer. I love watching it, but if there's Tolos out there that do play golf and know much more than I do, I don't know if I fully understand what he's saying there, if there's truth there. But Rory, nonetheless, not a great setup. I think this was kind of funny. JT, Justin Thomas, asked about how he handles being the leader in the clubhouse over the weekend. This was from Saturday.
Art to being the clubhouse leader, how you're supposed to handle the next hour, 2 hours, 3 hours.
I don't know if there's an art. I can tell you how there isn't, because it happened to me one time in Hartford, Connecticut one year, and I finished pretty similar. Like the leaders were on like the middle of the front nine. And I had a buddy that was there out watching me, and like we went in the locker room, in the clubhouse, and probably had like 4 or 5 beers at lunch. And next thing you know, it's like 2.5 hours later, and I'm still the leader in the clubhouse. The wind picked up like 15, 20 miles an hour, and the leaders were on like 15. And like Jimmy was caddying for me at the time. He's at a Subway like an hour and a half away. Like, what do we do? And I've never not wanted to be in a playoff before, but I kind of didn't want to be in a playoff then. It wouldn't have been a good situation. So I'm not going to do that. I promise you that.
So no beers right now after this round?
No, sir.
Didn't last long, though. I thought it was a pretty interesting day on Sunday. I watched, I'd say, most of the coverage on Sunday and pretty much enjoyed it, even though it was a tight field, a tight leaderboard, as Rory said. I pretty well enjoyed Sunday's coverage and thought it was pretty good there. Dan B checks in on YouTube, says Tolo. Dewey checking in. So there's Dewey. There's our Dewey sighting of the day. He checks in and says, Philly's got Don Mattingly and are catching up. I'm not buying the Braves hype. What's wrong with you, Dewey? You're done with the Braves? I mean, they've got an 8-game lead in the division. Come on, man. What are we doing here? Let's go to the phone lines, 844-326-3663. Andrew wants to weigh in. What's up, Andrew?
Hey, I was hoping to explain a little bit on what Rory's talking about on the setup.
Please do.
So generally, if it's a trickier golf course, off the tee box, you have to place the ball in certain places, or an approach shot to the green, you want to place it in certain places to try to get to those leveled greens or those big greens, get a little roll back on your approaches, things like that. If he's saying what I kind of noticed a little bit too, is that you could land the ball almost anywhere in the fairway and still get a similar shot towards the green.
So is it the pin locations that he had the biggest issue with?
I think it's the hazards that the fairways are so open that you can kind of just go for it, and you don't have to really angle or change anything about your drive as you're going from hole to hole.
That's interesting. So let me ask you this, Andrew. What would you, and I'm assuming you're a golfer, right? You sound like you are.
Yeah, I play a good bit. I'm actually on the way to a tournament right now.
Okay. What would you say, like, from them? And I didn't get the piece of the audio where he was explaining what would have been better. What would the professionals, the Scotties, the Rorys in that case, what would they like to see better in a course like that?
Probably more rolling hills, tighter fairways, a little more like the bunker. So if most people are going to drive 300, I mean, that sounds like absolutely wild for regular golfers. But if you're going to drive 300, 320 every single time, like in Augusta, there's a bunker from 280 to 315 right on where you want to be. So you have to play it a certain way. You have to shape your drives a certain way. There's water on the right, but the hole still turns to the right. There's a little more thought goes into every shot if there are, what I think Rory's saying, are more hazards in the way of an easy approach towards the green.
I like that. So basically it's a course problem. I mean, there's nothing you can do at that course to fix it, right?
No, that's what he's saying, is that it's the setup of the design of the course is what I think he's saying.
Gotcha.
Is that they're not, and even to design a better course like that, it'd take, a year almost.
Yeah. But I guess the only alternative is just not play there, right? Play at a different course is what they're because they do rotate for the PGA Championship a good bit.
Yeah, probably not for that high of a major. I mean, I think it's a great course layout. Just maybe a more challenging one for a major of that caliber would probably fit these stars a little better, which is why you saw a bunch of young guys doing pretty well because they could just grip it and rip it, as they say.
Yeah, I like that. Well, hey, I appreciate the explanation, Andrew. Where are you playing? Can you tell us where you're playing at today?
Headed up to Fox Run.
And that is where?
Towards kind of Five Forks area.
Okay.
Still Greenville.
Gotcha. Well, good luck to you, Andrew. Appreciate you listening, and thanks for the phone call, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
844-326-3663. Good explanation there. A really good explanation there from Andrew. That's what I was looking for, and Andrew delivered there. So let me go to one more piece of audio. This one's from Scotty talking about the pin locations. Here's Scotty Scheffler.
Most of the pins today were, kind of absurd. They were just so far into the areas where we thought the pins were going to be, and then they just, like the one on 14 was probably the hardest pin that I've seen in a long time, just because there's literally just like a spine, and they're like, I'll just put the pin right on top of it. And you're like, all right, well, see what I can do. And just challenging.
Just challenging, he said, just challenging. So it's interesting. I do enjoy seeing the best of the best in the world struggle, but it is interesting to hear their, I guess, thoughts, opinions on the course. And again, that kind of goes back to what we talked about last week with the PGA. I don't know if they'll ever consider doing things differently, but they do rotate quite a bit. It's a different course every year, it feels like. And maybe it would be better if it were a little more similar, a little more steady in terms of the rotation of the courses. Let's see here. Dan B says on YouTube, if I have a kind of long explanation about NASCAR this weekend, should I still call it 5? That's okay, Dan. You can call it 5. Listen, I'm solo, so the show is flowing as it flows today. You can call it 5. You can call it 4. Yeah, call whatever. 5 o'clock's fine, though. That's okay. We'll get you on. Let's go to Clemson. John Rittman. Clemson softball season came to an end over the weekend. Here was their coach.
You're never really prepared for this day. You know, you as a coach, you know, you coach until the last out, and you know, it's just winning's in our DNA. We don't prepare to lose. You prepare to win. And so when it is the end of the season, it's sometimes very difficult to address your team and address the media and get ready for the next phase. You know, it's just it's a really long year. It's a grind, and we put so much just emotion and effort in what we do every day to win. And, you know, for your season to come to a conclusion like it did today, it's always very difficult. But there's a lot that this team has to be proud of. You know, we lost a tough game against UNCG on Friday, a game that, you know, we kind of beat ourselves in, and game of inches that just didn't seem to get a break. And then, but to show the character that and the fight that this team did yesterday to come out and to get the doubleheader sweep, to give us a position to play in a regional final, I couldn't ask for more. You know, I think I said this is our 7th year of having a program. We didn't compete in postseason in 2020, and this is our 5th regional final that we've played in, and we've won 3 of those. So, you know, for our short existence to be where we're at, I'm really proud of our accomplishments and what the Clemson softball program is made of.
It doesn't seem like 7 years already. It seems pretty new. I mean, it just seems like yesterday is my point. Seems like just yesterday when Clemson got a softball team. So 7 years, tough loss. They lost UNCG, I believe, 1-0 on Friday. And then yesterday, 5-0, I believe, was the score from Georgia. Let's keep it on Clemson. Graham Neff appeared on a podcast recently. I believe it was the Eric McLean podcast, talking about Chad Morris, what he brings to this Clemson offense in 2026. Here was the Clemson AD on Chad Morris.
Mac, you've probably heard this so many times, right? But he, you know, you can't go broke making a profit. You know, so that was one of Chad's deals of like, hey, from a quarterback standpoint, you know, if the first read or whatever, like to push the ball down the field isn't there, hey, dump it off, right? And get a couple yards. You can't go, even if you make a little profit, get a couple yards. You're not going to go broke. Don't take a loss, you know, or don't force a turnover. And so I was a finance guy on the just sideline watching practice, and he was yelling that, and he goes, ain't that right? Ain't that right, money guy? You can't go broke making a profit. It was just one of my, like, kind of first Chad Morris experience type circumstances from, you know, a decade ago. Listen, it's very clear with Chad, Tom Allen, Matt Luke, Rich Bisaccia, who was hired back here earlier in the spring from in a special teams role, of those coaches, at least those 4 specifically, that have been head coaches and head coached at the highest level. Rich was an interim head coach for in the NFL. Chad's been an SEC head coach. Matt's been an SEC head coach. Tom's been a Big Ten head coach, all with success. And I think what that adds, not only for Coach Sweeney, within the staff, within the building, and just that experience, that set of eyes, so to speak, seeing it from different places. I say the confidence, that's not the best word, but just like the, you know, what those guys bring to the, you know, to the program. Mac, you've probably heard this.
So look, I have no issue with confidence in Chad Morris. Chad Morris is proven in Clemson. We all know what he did, right? I just would caution Clemson fans and Clemson media, you know, on the other side of town to not do what they're guilty of so many times and getting all excited. Rich Bisaccia, I mean, it's great hire, bringing an ex-NFL guy in, right? I love that. But again, we've seen it. You've had great talent and great coaches before. I'm just saying, let's not do what it seems like we do every year and pump it up, and then it fails, and everybody's like, oh no, what's happened? All right, any other audio here to throw at you before we run to a break? Let me look at the Joy Law Firm text line real quick. 844-326-3663. Eric Hines calling out Dewey. He says Dewey is just being Betty. Betty or Petty? Go Bravos, says Eric Hines. We're going to talk about the Braves in the next segment. Andrew texted in. That's why the pins were challenging. The fairway shorts were ready, so the course tried to compensate by making the greens harder. Appreciate that text. Texter from the 203 says, Lady Gamecocks are still in, I believe. Are you talking about the softball team there, Texter? If that's true, maybe I am mistaken, but I don't believe that's true. You said they're still in. Am I mistaken? Did I read that wrong over the weekend, Texter? They lost to UCLA. So if I am wrong on that, please correct me. I am wrong sometimes. I have been wrong once or twice. So maybe I am. You could be right, Texter. All right, let's see. Any other audio to throw at you before we run to a break? We talked about Justin Thomas, Scotty, Rory, John Rittman, the Braves. Oh, let me throw this one at you. Speaking of Clemson, a good friend of mine, Jason Patterson, does play-by-play for college baseball. And I actually talked to Jason on Friday as he was driving to Blacksburg. Maybe it was Thursday or Friday. He was driving to Blacksburg for the Clemson-Virginia Tech series. He had the call. This was an unusual occurrence during the game. Did you hear this audio?
Here comes the determination. He is swinging and right through it. Throw comes home this time, a little wide, and the run will score. Also ends up moving Crichton down to second base there. And the turf just came up. The entire right side batter's box worked its way loose on the slide home.
So I know you couldn't see it. You could hear it, though. Jason Patterson had the call there. The turf, as the batter for Clemson slid in the home plate, the entire piece of turf came up and injured the batter. It was quite odd. But nonetheless, Clemson, they did get one win over the weekend, but it was only one, and they lost another series. So a tough weekend for the Clemson Tigers. But a good weekend for the Atlanta Braves. A couple of texts already on the Joy Law Firm text line about those Bravos. They just keep winning series. We'll dive into it if you're a Braves fan. I want to hear from you next. lot more to get to on the show. We're just getting started. Going to talk about the Atlanta Braves. A lot of text already about those Bravos who just keep winning series. We're also going to get to Aaron Rodgers coming back to the NFL. A little Gamecock insight on the baseball coaching search coming up at 4 p.m. Some other names out there, or is it all about one name? Grayson Mann, TigerNet.com, coming up at 4:22 on the show, talking about Clemson's big win today on the recruiting trail. Daily Wires, 4:45. Overreaction Monday at 5 o'clock. We'll talk Gamecocks with Jack Veltri, 5:22. A little NBA later in the show as well, as the conference finals are set. But how about those Braves? Are you, if you are a Braves fan, want to hear from you, 844-326-3663. It's been a very good 2026 if you are an Atlanta Braves fan. It was Brew Fighter on the YouTube stream earlier in the show who commented and said, I was at the Braves game Friday night when Yaz walked it off against the Greenville Drive. Boston Red Sox. I like that shot there, Brew Fighter. But that was an incredible ending on Friday. Almost, like I said, an almost incredible ending on Saturday as well, where the Braves bounced it off the ankle or leg of Chapman, and you got to give it to the old man. He recovered, and Chapman, for his age, man, he shut down. He shut down the Braves. What was that, the ninth inning, I believe, on Friday, and then they went to extras. He still got it. So good to see the Braves bounce back, though, on Sunday after a loss on Saturday to the Boston Red Sox. Almost had the series sweep, but hey, we'll take a series win. Want to hear from you, Tolos, 844-326-3663 if you are a Braves fan. The Braves back in action tonight, 6:40 in Miami at the Miami Marlins. Atlanta favored. It's J.R. Ritchie on the mound tonight for the Braves. Want to throw this wild stat at you real quick, talking about the Braves. I saw this on Twitter earlier today. I believe this came from 680 The Fan. Is that right? Did I see that right? Yes, it was 680 The Fan out of Atlanta. We have their talent on all the time. Brandon Leak, home team. Brandon Leak, you hear him. We have him on a good bit. But pretty wild stat when it comes to one of the Braves that are performing pretty well this year. It's Raciel Iglesias. And this is a real stat. This is not like a typo, an error, or anything like that. You talk about being a good closer in the MLB and what a start the Braves have had with their pitching staff, which we'll get to in a few minutes, and the bullpen, as well as the closer, Raciel Iglesias. We sit today on the 18th day of May in 2026. 18th day of May. And this is a real stat. This is a real thing. Raciel Iglesias, as of today, still has a perfect 0.00 ERA through 13 appearances this season. Think about that for a second. A 0.0 ERA through 13 appearances this season, 8 saves, a 0.73 whip, 17 strikeouts. This guy is getting it done. The Braves are hot. The Braves have played 47 games. They've lost 1 series. They currently have series wins over 4 of the other 5 division leaders. They hadn't played the Rays yet. They're the only team in the National League with 30 wins. They reached that mark 4 days ago. So there's a lot to be excited about. And my goodness, what a stat there when it comes to Raciel Iglesias and the start that he's had in 2026. Also, let's get to Austin Riley. What about Austin Riley finally heating up? Just a couple of weeks ago, Braves fans, Tom in Somerville, a few others were wanting to ship Austin Riley off, right? Austin Riley starting to look like himself. Brew Fighter on YouTube says, enjoy Raciel this season. Not going to be able to afford him next year, and Suarez will be the new closer. He's had a couple of injury issues, Brew Fighter, but we will enjoy him this year. Hopefully enjoy him all the way to a World Series, right? But Austin Riley getting back going. I know we have hit the panic button, but Mark Bowman of MLB.com put out an interesting article yesterday about Austin Riley's start this year, his numbers, and how they're actually not that different than his 2023 All-Star campaign. The Braves were just red hot offensively in 2023. And we've hit the panic button on Austin Riley, but his numbers, if you go and look, they're pretty similar. So Austin Riley getting going, which is great. You want to see that. You expect to see that. Also, some good news about Ronald Acuna. He will travel with the Braves, but the turf in Miami this week, this is a 4-game series, by the way, is one of the reasons that you will not see him this week. So Ronald can't get back going on the turf, so we'll hopefully have him. But Austin Riley had a 3-run shot against the Red Sox. Martin Perez was moved from Monday to Tuesday. So against the Marlins, the Braves will have J.R. Ritchie tonight, Martin Perez tomorrow, Chris Sale on Wednesday, and then Spencer Strider on Thursday. And I don't know, as the season goes on, I don't know what the plan is with Ritchie. I think it'll be interesting to see if they allow him to have a little bit longer of a leash, because the Braves right now, like Walt Weiss, you got to give him credit. He's using his bullpen. We talked about this a couple of times already. He's aggressive. It seems like the Braves are trying desperately to win every game, and they do. But the thought does cross your mind when it comes to the bullpen if you have to start preserving the bullpen a little bit. If you give a guy like J.R. Ritchie a little bit longer of a leash when he gets into a dilemma in the 5th or the 6th. So we'll see how long that goes. And the story around J.R. Ritchie's been pretty good thus far. So a couple of updates there from Mark Bowman on Twitter. But nonetheless, the Braves off to a really good start in 2026. And they're winning series, not just games. You talk about one of the best starts the Braves have had, and that's in large part due to them being consistent. It's not about winning 25 games, winning some here, some there, losing some here, some there. The Braves are 14-1-1 in series this season, which is just absurd consistency, right? It's absurd consistency when you look at 2.5 months of baseball. We've seen in the MLB that anybody can get hot for a weekend, right? But the Atlanta Braves thus far, and again, I've said this a million times, still a ton of baseball to be played. The Atlanta Braves look more like an elite team than a team that's just getting hot. Elite teams avoid sweeps. Elite teams are able to bounce back after losses, which the Braves have done. They're able to consistently win 2 out of 3. And that's what Atlanta keeps doing. And when you look historically, that's usually how World Series caliber teams are built. They don't really rely on long winning streaks. They just keep stacking series wins. And I know we've seen in the past teams get hot at the right time. That happens in baseball. The Phillies have done it a few times. What was it, 2023? They lost in the World Series, I believe. 2022, 2023, something like that. Brew Fighter on YouTube says Ritchie will probably be sent down when Waldrop returns. Yeah, Hurston Waldrop coming back soon. And that's what I'm thinking too, Brew, but it'll be interesting to see if he does, because he's been pleasantly surprising, right? He's been good. So the pitching has become dominant again. That was one of the notes I wrote down from the weekend as well. And you know what the pitching kind of reminds you of? Not to get really nostalgia here, but the pitching this season, for as bad as we thought it could be this season after what we saw last year, the pitching has kind of become like that vintage Braves pitching we all loved, right? From the 90s and the early it feels like vintage Braves baseball, right? With the pitching staff having now gone 11 straight games with 3 or 4 runs or few. I think it's 3 runs or fewer in 11 straight. I think that stat's right. You talk about these type of streaks that are associated with elite playoff teams. And what's impressive with this pitching staff is they're doing it with starters. They haven't been 100% healthy. The bullpen's been fantastic. I talked about the closer and Raciel Iglesias. He's been money. They have great depth in the pitching staff as well. They've got really good depth. And the last thing I wrote down was I think they have – this comes from their depth. Good depth allows you to be this way. But I think the Braves have matchup flexibility. Being able to have enough guys and good arms to have matchup flexibility that a lot of teams just don't have because of injuries and not having the right guys. And, we just didn't know what this Braves bullpen would look like, 2 months ago. But having the flexibility to match up, Walt Weiss, that's been kind of a trademark thus far. They've been able to match up with a lot of these different teams. Everybody talks about the offense, and rightfully so. The offense is really good, but the pitching, in my opinion, is kind of what's separating this team right now. They are really elite pitching, and at times this year have had the best ERA, team ERA, if you will, in Major League Baseball. I also wrote down Spencer Strider. I know he just got back not long ago, but man, if you're watching, Strider looks like Strider. He looks like the Spencer Strider. He has increased his curveball usage significantly this year. One projection breakdown noted his curveball usage jumped from around 9% to 20%. So now hitters just can't sit on the fastball. His strikeout stuff becomes even nastier. Strider's more unpredictable late in counts, which has been big for him this year. And look, when Strider's right, he changes the ceiling of the franchise. We've seen that, and he looks to be like himself right now. I also wrote down the Braves don't have to score 8-9 runs to win, right? Another sign of a mature baseball team. Previous Braves teams sometimes have kind of felt, in my opinion, like home run dependent, if you will. Feast or famine, Dan Uggla type feast or famine, right? Slugfest baseball, and you have to outscore everybody. I don't feel that with this year's team. I really don't. I think this team can win 8-1 like Sunday. What was it, 3-2 like Friday? Pitching duels, bullpen games, late comeback games. They've had a lot of late comeback games this year, guys. They've had a lot of late comebacks. It's playoff baseball stuff is what it is, And against Boston, Friday was a grinder. Extra innings, you had to grind it out to get that win at home. And then Sunday, they exploded offensively, something that you were kind of hoping for because they hadn't done that on Friday and Saturday. So what you're getting is different styles, but same result. Different styles of baseball, same result, and that series win. And I go back to depth. The depth has been insane. I think that's been the most impressive thing for me as a Braves fan in 2026 that I just didn't really feel great about. The depth this year, even with some stars or starters slumping at times, Atlanta's just been able to keep rolling. Michael Harris has he's cooled off a little bit in May. Ozzie Albies at times hasn't been peak level. Sean Murphy's dealt with issues, obviously, with injury, and Austin Riley has as well, but they just keep winning because guys like Drake Baldwin contributes, and you have role players who are contributing, and the bottom of the lineup contributes, right? And the bench guys contribute. So right now, an elite organization sign is the depth is helping the Braves to be able to contribute night in and night out. And if Austin Riley, if he can get back going, man, you feel like this Braves team could be really, really tough. So I think they're the most complete baseball team right now. And I know that might be a little bit of a debate because the Dodgers are still like uber talented, but they hadn't been amazing. Their best players have slumped, and that happens, right? Still talented, but thus far, again, it's still early. They do look vulnerable in areas more so than previous years, right? The Phillies are dangerous but inconsistent. I said a couple of weeks ago, don't fully hit the panic button on the Phillies. They've climbed right back into second place now above the Nationals. The Braves have an 8-game lead in the NL East. The Cubs are a good story. So I still think the Braves are better, more complete team, but they need more. We need more proof that the Cubs are a complete team, a more complete team than the Braves. The Braves just took 2 of 3, and you look at the rest of the East, still unpredictable, right? But Atlanta, thus far, checking every box with the pitching, the bullpen depth, the power, the defense, the playoff experience that you still have, the lineup depth, and then the manager managing the way that he has been. And I know Boston's not elite, so don't overreact to that weekend series, but it was a grind. Friday and Saturday were a grind, man, and it was a quality opponent, playoff atmosphere at times. Those were some really good games on Friday and Saturday, especially Friday night and extra innings. So you jump on them early on Sunday and handle your business, never let them breathe. You have a little bit of a rain delay, but this Braves team right now, they're just doing everything right. And that's why it scares you because, baseball is a strange game where it doesn't matter how you play in May. World Series aren't won in May, but you can certainly lose your way out of the World Series or the pennant race in May, and the Braves certainly not doing that. On the YouTube stream, Fuentes, or Brew Fighter, says Fuentes saved the game in the 10th on Friday. Got to keep him in the bullpen. He did. That was a amazing performance by him. Brew Fighter also says the 2023 team was too home run heavy. That isn't going to sustain. in playoffs, which is why the Phillies beat them. Bullpen depth equals playoff success and sustainability. I agree with you, Brew Fighter. Hopefully it keeps up, because right now it's a lot of fun. If you are an Atlanta Braves fan, appreciate the comments there on YouTube, Brew Fighter. Let's get back to Aaron Rodgers. A couple of texts about that in the very first segment. The biggest news in the NFL over the weekend, Aaron Rodgers reuniting with old Mike. We'll get to it next.
Upstate.
Final segment of our number one. I'm Cole Bryson. So good to be with you on this Overreaction Monday. Diesel out this week, but he will be back next week. Reminder, next Monday, a week from today, is Memorial Day. No show No show on Memorial Day, but we'll be back on Tuesday. I'm solo with you this week. You can be a part of the show if you want a few minutes of co-hosting. I welcome any calls at 844-326-3663. Joy Law Firm text line open as well. 70 Tolos watching the show right now on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. 49 on Twitter, 18 on the Fan Upstate Twitter, and 3 on YouTube. Good to see those 3 YouTube. Well, we got to get those YouTube numbers up, but appreciate all of you listening on 97.1 Spartanburg, 97.7 Greenville, 101.5 in Anderson. Sammy and Greer gets in on the Joy Law Firm text line and says, Cole, you kill it solo. Keep it up. Sammy, appreciate you. Appreciate you turning it on and leaving it on. So, Tolos, your thoughts on Aaron Rodgers returning, the biggest news of the weekend. And he is 40-plus years old, receiving a $22 million contract. Look, Aaron Rodgers, one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game, unbelievable talent, but getting this kind of money, do you feel like it's a good move for Pittsburgh? 844-326-3663. We had a Tolo earlier in the show text in and mentioned that Will Howard would have been a better option than Aaron Rodgers. Will Howard was on the Ohio State national championship team just a couple of years ago, and he is on the roster. I believe he will be QB too. I don't know where Will Howard is development-wise. It doesn't feel like we've heard a lot when it comes to Will Howard and what his NFL development has been or hasn't been. I like Will Howard a lot. I thought he was a heck of a player in college, but for whatever reason, Mike McCarthy and Steelers organization feel like they have a better shot at going with a vet, even though he is 40 whatever years old, and paying him $22 million, I believe, up to $25 million he could make, but he's 42 years old. He turns 43 in December. So I get it. I get the question as to why you don't want to go ahead and invest in your future if you are the Steelers and try to build around Will Howard and help him get some reps. He didn't have a lot of playing time last year, but look, I think for what we're seeing with the Pittsburgh Steelers is this. Same thing with Mike Tomlin before he left Pittsburgh. Now Mike McCarthy taking over. Mike McCarthy's a coach that's also up there in age. And no offense to Mike Tomlin, no offense to Mike McCarthy. These coaches don't seem to be the type of coaches that are wanting to I don't want to say make the Steelers younger, but kind of like plant roots and kind of be in this for the long haul. It feels like Mike Tomlin's last few years, you could kind of tell things were, I don't want to say spiraling, but coming to an end, if you will. And now with Mike McCarthy, I don't know how many years Mike McCarthy has left, but it just doesn't feel like what I'm getting at is it doesn't feel like this organization has a desire to get younger. And I'm not saying an old coach can't win games. That's not what I'm saying. Mike McCarthy's 62. He's still got a lot of coaching left, maybe. He's been around the block a few times, and he feels like he's finally home now in Pittsburgh. And look, he won a championship in Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers. So I get that. I do. Winning a championship with a quarterback, you have that camaraderie, you have that chemistry, you have that experience, you know what it takes. And I'm sure that Aaron Rodgers coming back had a lot to do with Mike McCarthy being there. Now, it's been several years since Mike McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers won that Super Bowl back in Green Bay, right? Aaron Rodgers looked young, which he doesn't now, and Mike McCarthy still looked young-ish. So those years were great, but it's been a while is my point. And I guess my bigger point is it just doesn't feel like the Steelers are concerned about trying to get younger right now. And I know they drafted Will Howard, but do you believe in the guy or not? Do you believe in Will Howard to come out and be the face of your franchise? There's nothing that we can point to right now that leads us to believe the Steelers trust Will Howard long-term. Maybe they do. But as of right now, there's nothing that we've seen that leads us to believe that they are bought in on him being the franchise guy long-term. I don't know enough about what he's done up in Pittsburgh to know if he's the long-term answer or not. Again, it goes back to development or lack thereof in terms of what his development's been. It doesn't feel like we've heard a lot about his development in Pittsburgh. And you know, like my point about the age a minute ago is like if the Pittsburgh Steelers felt really confident in Will Howard, wouldn't they say, "Oh, no, Aaron, we're good. We appreciate you, but you're 42 years old. We're excited about what we have here with Will Howard, and we're excited to build around Will Howard, and we're excited about the future and years to come with Pittsburgh Steelers football." But no, they didn't. They bring a guy back who's 42 years old, and who knows what he's going to have left in the tank. Who knows if he can stay healthy, and maybe they win 10 games again. Maybe they make a playoff push, but there's nothing that you've seen from this organization that makes you feel like they want to invest in the future of their organization. They kind of feel like an older team. I know they have younger pieces on the team, like they draft well for the most part, but I don't know. I think it's a fascinating story with Will Howard because he showed at the college level that he was a really good quarterback. Again, being a good quarterback in college doesn't always translate to the NFL. I do get that, but I don't know that I totally am on board with bringing Rodgers back. Again, I will admit to you, watching him play over the years, at times when he was in his prime, you thought to yourself, man, this guy might be the best quarterback to ever play the game. He's that good. It's been that good. But at this point, it's just kind of, okay, we're going to bring him back for one more year. Maybe give Will Howard one more year to develop and see what happens. But nonetheless, Aaron Rodgers back for one more season. So if you're tired of hearing about Aaron Rodgers, well, you got to wait one more year before hopefully he hangs it up. Tolo's hour number 2 coming up. If you're a Gamecock fan, want to really hear from you in the next segment. Let's get into the Gamecock coaching surge. South Carolina baseball, they have one game tomorrow against Tennessee and the SEC tournament down in Hoover. We'll also talk to Jack Veltri at 5:22 and take a deep dive. But where does South Carolina go from here now that the regular season has come to an end? What are the latest reports about who the Gamecocks may hire? We'll get into it next. on the Joy Law Firm text line at 844-326-3663. Brandon Burnett gets in during the break and says, hey, Cole, you ready for that Thanksgiving butt kicking the Eagles are going to give the Cowgirls? Brandon, we're already talking trash, and here it is what? May, June, July, August, September, October, November. We're 6 months away, Brandon, from the Brandon. I'm going to do like Tyler or Dabo did with Tyler. Brandon. We're 6 months away from Thanksgiving, and we're already talking trash about the Cowboys. And that's why the Cowboys live rent-free in everybody's head, is because it is literally a random Monday in the middle of May on May 18th, a beautiful Monday, by the way. And the Cowboys are living rent-free in your head on a Monday afternoon in May. Are you kidding me? But by the way, no, that won't be happening. That won't be happening, not since we got your DC. Or we got one of your defensive assistant coaches and made him our DC in Christian Parker. So we're going to have all the intel we need. We're going to have all the game planning. I don't know. You'll get us once. It might be Thanksgiving, and the Eagles and the Cowboys, I'll say they split this year. I'm pretty high on Dallas, what they did in the draft. So we'll see. But 6 months in advance, already talking trash. I love it. I love it. That's why the Cowboys are the best, man. They live rent-free in everybody's head. They really do. He says, I love you, buddy. I love you too. And I'm going to love it even more when the Cowboys are proving you wrong on Thanksgiving. I've always wanted to go to a Thanksgiving game. I did not. Let me think. When I worked in Dallas for the Cowboys, 2022, I think I moved right after Thanksgiving. So I think I missed the Thanksgiving game, I believe. I don't think I was there for that one. Now, the next year I will. What was I? The next year? Or did I come? I don't remember if I came home for Thanksgiving or not. But anyways, Thanksgiving Day games are pretty special, right? That would be a fun one to go to. Cowboys, Eagles on Thanksgiving Day. Are you kidding me? Welcome into Wire to Wire. I'm Cole Bryson. So good to be with you on this Monday. Good to see JB, the OG Tolo, on the YouTube stream. He hops in just a couple of minutes ago and says Tolo, which stands for turn on, leave on, in case you're new to the show. Good to see you, JB. 71 Tolos watching the show on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. All right. Let's talk Gamecocks. We've got Grayson Mann coming up here in about 20 minutes on the show. But I do want to know from you Gamecock fans out there, now that the season's pretty much over. I know you might say, well, Cole, it's been over the entire year, and you would probably be right, but your regular season's over. You have a playoff or a SEC tournament game tomorrow in Hoover, Alabama against Tennessee. Tennessee's a top 25 team. So I don't know if you really feel good about your chances there. But now that the season's basically over, where do you stand? Where do you feel, Gamecock fans? Are you, and I want to know, if you're listening in the upstate Spartanburg, Greenville, Anderson, if you're a Gamecock, I want to know what your short list is. Diesel and I have talked about like Kevin Schnall and other candidates out there for South Carolina. But I want to know, if you are a Gamecock fan on this Monday, who is on your short list to be the next head coach? Who do you want? 844-326-3663. You can call the show. Phone lines are open. You can also text the Joy Law Firm text line. Again, 844-FAN-PHONE. That's FANFONE. Who do you want? I know, JB, you're on YouTube, JB, watching. You're a Gamecock fan. Who's on your short list? Who do you want to see? Not who you think it'll be, but if you're a Gamecock fan, who you want to see as the next head coach. Good to see Jersey Joe checking in on the Joy Law Firm text line. He says, Jersey Joe listening in the big truck on the FM radio. Appreciate you, Jersey Joe, in the big truck, the big rig, the 18-wheeler. Be safe out there, and we need to get a larger conglomerate, Joe, of Tolos who are truck drivers. I know we got a few. I know you're one of them. You're probably the one that takes in the most out of all the truck drivers out there, but we need to get a contingency of truck driving Tolos. I think that'd be a good idea. We used to have Amazon guy in. Hadn't heard from Amazon guy in a long time, but appreciate you listening, Joe. Be safe out there on 85, I guess. Is that where you are? I'm assuming. But nonetheless, Gamecocks. Who do you want to see if you're a Gamecock fan as your next baseball coach? JB on YouTube starts it off. He leads it off. He says, got to be Schnall. You got to look at Landon Powell, too. I don't care if he's a D2 coach. That comes from JB, the OG Tolo, on the YouTube stream. So I'll comment on that, JB, in just a second. But I do think when you talk about the offseason, this is one of the biggest stories, again, because Palmetto, that experiment did not last long. One of the biggest offseason stories as we start to close a chapter of Gamecock baseball is what South Carolina doesn't, or what South Carolina does with their head coaching vacancy, because the reality is if you're a diehard Gamecock baseball fan and you witnessed and lived in the years where South Carolina had the juggernaut role and under Ray Tanner, right now is when the season was just heating up. And the last few years, it has not been heating up in May. It's been dwindling down in May. Now, one important note, I saw a lot on Twitter yesterday about South Carolina Gamecock fans expecting an announcement from Coastal Carolina today and maybe something from South Carolina. You're not going to get an announcement this week. You still have a game tomorrow in Hoover. And by the way, Jack Veltri of Gamecock Central, he's on the way to Hoover to cover the Gamecocks, and he'll join us at 5:22. So stay tuned for that if you're a Gamecock fan. But you got to remember, go back in the encyclopedia, go back in the history book. South Carolina hired Ray Tanner on June 14th. South Carolina hired Chad Holbrook on July 16th. Mark Kingston was hired by South Carolina on June the 30th. And Paul Maneri was hired on June the 11th. So my point being, I don't expect a baseball coach to be named anytime soon. Does that mean Jeremiah Donati's not on top of it right now? No. Does that mean he's not having conversations? No. But if it's Schnall or if it's somebody else, don't expect the hire right now. Again, Ray Tanner was on June 14th. Chad Holbrook was hired on July 16th. Kingston on June the 30th. Maneri on June the 11th. You don't hear a May date in there. Am I saying that they can't have a hire complete in May? No, I'm not saying that. It might. But traditionally, it's been June before South Carolina baseball has had their coach. Now, it is still a national brand. South Carolina is. It's still a top 10 baseball atmosphere. You still have elite facilities. You still have SEC resources and huge NIL potential. I know right now it might not be the best, but you still have one of the best fan bases in college baseball. And look, the reality is right now the program feels stuck. The Paul Maneri experiment did not work. Monty Lee, you give him credit, but the program feels just stuck in a deep rut right now. Just in a deep, deep rut. And I know me and other Tolos out there at some point have been stuck and there's no way to get you out. But that's where this Gamecock baseball program feels, man. You just get out of the truck. You look around at the tires. They're just spinning. You put it in full-wheel drive. Nothing happens. You're still spinning. You're just kicking mud up, making it worse, digging the hole deeper. And I hate to say it, but that's where it feels like this program is. Now, does Monty Lee deserve like a tremendous amount of credit? I said a minute ago he deserves credit. I think he deserves credit for bringing a little stability this season, but I don't know how much credit he deserves because Monty Lee didn't just get here. He's been in the program for several years. He's been the hitting coach. He's, like I've said, he's had his hand in the cookie jar. So, look, the reality is the Paul Maneri era failed drastically. We didn't know what that would look like. It was an experiment that did not work. It never felt long-term from the jump, right? He's a legend, no debating that. National title at LSU, Hall of Fame resume. But it felt like that nostalgia hire that just didn't have a sustainable rebuild model, I guess. And then you look at what they did, they 22-30, 7 SEC wins. And that's just unacceptable at South Carolina. And look, I think Jeremiah Donati knows that. He hadn't been around the program for a long time. Jeremiah Donati, remember, he wasn't there during the glory days. And I don't know how much of the glory days of Gamecock baseball Jeremiah Donati remembers. right, with him being at TCU. And we kind of made the joke last week about if Jeremiah Donati even knew who Landon Powell was. So it'll be interesting to see where they go. They won, 7 conference games this year. They've lost 12 games in a row as of right now. They were 18-18 at home. They were 4-14 on the road, 0-2 in neutral sites. Again, they finished the regular season with a record of 22-34 and 7-23 in the SEC. 7-23 in the SEC. That is just bad. You got swept by Vandy, lost to Winthrop, swept by Bama, swept by LSU. You hadn't won a game since April 25th when you beat Kentucky at home. That's the last time Carolina won a game. So it's just, man, you go back to the truck analogy, the car being stuck in the mud, and, you get out of the car to look to see if it's better, and you just keep hitting the gas. It just makes it worse. And I hate to say it, but it feels like every coach that's hired right now just makes it worse. Paul Mainieri made it worse. Mark Kingston wasn't near as bad as Paul Mainieri, even though Mark Kingston was bad. He wasn't this bad. That's what it feels like this program is. There's nothing. They need that tractor to come hook up to the front of that thing and pull them out drastically, because it's not a good place to be in. They do have Tennessee tomorrow, and Tennessee is 23 in the country. But you look at this year, seven conference wins in 2026. You go back to 2025 under Paul Mainieri in his first year, they had 6 conference wins. So you won one more conference game this year than you did last year. And in 2 seasons, you won 13 conference games. Think about that. You won 13 conference games in 2 seasons at South Carolina. That's just again, it's just not supposed to happen at a place like South Carolina. In 2024, Kingston and the boys, they went 13-17 in the conference. That's when he got fired. So it was a bad year then, right? 2023, you go back and look at the Gamecocks in 2023, they went 16-13 in the conference. So not as bad. They had at least a winning record in SEC play. Right? That's the last time, by the way, they had a winning record, because the year before, 2022, they were 13-17 in SEC play. The year before, 2021, they did have a winning record. They weren't great. They were 16-14. Kind of an average baseball team in the SEC. So they're in a place that it feels like they just don't know how to get out of. And I do think Kevin Schnall would be able to get them out of that rut. And Kevin Schnall being a South Carolina guy, I think he would understand what it takes to get a program like South Carolina back to relevancy. And I like Monty Lee a lot. I do, but I know he went on a podcast or went out in the media over the weekend and did an article about what his plan would be to rebuild Gamecock baseball. But my whole thing with that is, if this were 3 to 4 or 5 years ago, that's one thing. Maybe you give them a chance, and maybe they should have given them a chance, right? But now you just can't afford to. You just can't afford to. They've just been so bad for so long. You can't afford in this position to take a chance, a risky hire on a guy like Monty Lee. You've got to go out and you've got to get it right. Not saying you've got to go hire the next Hall of Fame coach, because those don't grow on trees, few and far between, right? But look in college baseball. Plenty of other programs out there have gotten it right. Plenty of other programs out there have hired good coaches and found good coaches. And I know the SEC's tough, but plenty of other programs in the SEC have found good coaches. So, look, Monty's team, they played better. He has ties. He's from here. He won at college at Charleston. He's respected. I mean, anybody that knows baseball in this state, that they all respect the heck out of Monty Lee. A good recruiter. But, I think the question that Jeremiah Donati has to answer is Monty Lee the guy to elevate the program, or is Monty Lee the guy that stabilizes the program? And you can't afford to hire a coach to stabilize the program right now. You just can't. You just can't afford to. This is a This is a big hire for Jeremiah Donati. You don't need a stabilizer. You need a guy who can come in and elevate the program. They need a coach that has Omaha potential, elite recruiting, that can come in and manage NIL, can manage the portal, can develop players, a good staff, right? And they have to have somebody with some energy. The hire has to hit. It does. I mean, look, could they make another bad hire? Yeah, they could. The world's not going to end, but geez, man, you can't do it again. You've just wasted too many opportunities, and that's why I think Kevin Schnall will continue to gain traction. Having World Series experience on staff under Gary Gilmore at Coastal means a lot. It makes a ton of sense. I know he's a Coastal guy, but he does understand baseball like in the state of South Carolina, and that matters. He's not coming from California. He's not coming from the Midwest. He knows the state. He knows the recruiting footprint. He gets the culture of like this JUCO baseball, the travel, the Southeast recruiting. Like he gets all that. And I'm not saying he's a perfect coach, not a perfect candidate. I would love for them to hire Landon Powell. I think Landon would do a great job, but I think Kevin Schnall is the name that will continue to gain traction for a big reason. And look at Coastal. They've become in the past few years the best program in the state. Clemson's been good under Eric Bakich, and I know Clemson beat Coastal just a few weeks ago, but the uncomfortable truth is Coastal's been the more stable baseball program for many years than South Carolina, and that's kind of insane to say. You know, considering South Carolina has SEC resources and SEC money and SEC exposure, but it's true. Like Coastal, go look at Coastal. They win consistently. They develop players. They're in the postseason. They play with swagger. They have energy. They recruit well. They have an identity. And Schnall just continued that momentum after Gilmore hung it up. And man, you don't want to be the guy that follows the guy. You don't want to be the man that follows the man. And Schnall had to do that with Gary Gilmore. And I think he deserves a ton of credit. He also feels like a modern college baseball coach, which I think is very important because college baseball has changed dramatically over the years, right? Now it's more about roster retention and analytics and NIL and transfer portal and player branding and pitching labs and recruiting relationship. And Schnall and others out there too feel like they're built for today's game, you know, not 2009 baseball like Paul Maneri was. So the big question that we've talked about many, many times is, will you leave Coastal? Will you leave Coastal Carolina? That's the fascinating part because obviously he is a Coastal guy and he's in a really good situation at Coastal Carolina. But the SEC is a much better conference. You know, Coastal's not a normal mid-major anymore. They're a contender. They care about baseball. They invest heavily. They win consistently. And like the reality is if Schnall did leave Coastal Carolina, they'd go out and get a big name. I mean, it's a big job. It's a big-time job. I've seen a couple of names thrown out there over the weekend. There are a lot of good options out there. I don't think Schnall is the only option, but, you know, I think there are some interesting names that aren't like the hot names. I think a Todd Interdonato is an interesting name. John Whittle of the Big Spur brought him up over the weekend on Twitter. Boston College coach, had Wofford ties, did an incredible job at Wofford, but it's still an elite job at South Carolina. You still have Founders Park. You still have fan support. You still have that SEC exposure and the NIL upside and the recruiting footprint. I mean, for goodness sake, the recruiting footprint that South Carolina has in this state, I mean, the talent in this state in baseball, I don't think people realize. I mean, you can recruit South Carolina, Georgia, North Carolina, Florida, Tennessee without even leaving the Southeast. Like, that's insane. You know, and there's, even though it's been a long time, there's still tradition and national championships and Omaha history. So it's as bad as it is right now, and it is bad. I don't think it's a rebuild from scratch kind of job. I know it might feel like that. I know it might feel like a job that's rebuild from scratch, but I think it's more of a wake the monster backup job than it is a rebuild from scratch job. Coming up next, you see him on the stream, Grayson Mann, TigerNet.com. Grayson, you locked and loaded, ready to go, man?
Oh, I'm ready, man. I'm ready.
He's ready. We're talking Clemson. Clemson had a big win today on the recruiting trail. We'll talk to Grayson Mann, TigerNet.com, next. Well, a lot to get to when it comes to Clemson on the show today. We've talked a little South Carolina Gamecocks baseball, but it's time to talk to Grayson Mann as we do every Monday at this time of TigerNet.com. A very busy Monday, a lot going on, a lot to get to, Grayson. Some seasons coming to an end across the Palmetto State. How the heck are you, man?
I'm doing good. It was a busy weekend in Athens, and I'm feeling refreshed and ready to get after it, man.
Refreshed and ready to get after it, something that green team behind you is not doing. Your Boston Celtics. I mean, what's going on with Jaylen Brown right now? You following all this with him and Stephen A. Smith?
He said that he was, we can't say exactly what he said on air, but it was more to the effect of like he was one fish, blue fishing it, like the old Dr. Seuss books, but saying a certain word to Stephen A. They're in a spitting match. They're just trading jabs left and right. It just feels like it's a little bit of a mess, and they can do as they please because we're not playing on the court. So I'm not really paying attention to it.
I think sometimes that stuff's scripted, It'd be like me and you, like let's script a argument and let's
Should we
just
start
go
the
at
beef?
it. We can. This time of year, as we go into the summer, Grayson, like it gets slow, right? If we want to script beef, we can do it. You don't need the ratings. Your stuff, your content, it's off the charts already. I might, right? But we can. It's a good idea. Grayson Mann of TigerNet.
I can't fake hate you though. I can't even.
Oh yes,
fake
you can. I promise you can. Grayson, let's start with the biggest news of the day when it comes to Clemson 2027 four-star safety Jarrell Chandler committed to Clemson. He chose the Tigers over Miami and Tennessee. A big need at safety and a 2027 commit. Talk about Chandler, what he brings. And it feels like when you choose Clemson over Miami and Tennessee, Grayson, these days with as much Miami money as there is out there, a big win for the Tigers, right?
Absolutely, Cole. And I think for Chandler, just starting with the player that Clemson's getting and what sort of dives into the picture of why he ended up choosing the Tigers is being a true safety. He reminds me a lot of a Nick Imamori type from Seattle that sort of plays like a linebacker in that sense that he's incredibly aggressive. He's willing to get into the box, get to that extra level, plays really well 3-down type of player, twitchy athlete, willing tackler, speed, length, all the things that Tom Allen desires out of his players. But you have a little bit of that aggression that Tom Allen's looking for. Every time we're at a practice, we hear Tom Allen talking about aggression and tackling and sort of that IQ of being sort of a sound, smart defender. This is certainly one of them. And when you go into who Clemson had to battle for him and the win that comes with that and the implications that you had mentioned, Cole, beating out of Miami, it was a great morning for Clemson recruiting. And man, did they need a win.
Yeah. They did. Let me ask you this. You've seen several recruits now come in under the Tom Allen umbrella, Grayson, and you've said it right there. You and I and others have heard Tom Allen talk about for seems like 2 years now, a year and a half, whatever, what he wants out of a recruit, right? What a perfect Tom Allen Clemson Tiger looks like. Now that he's started to kind of fill some holes and you saw him last year on the field and now you're starting to see him added this 2027 class, Grayson, do you think Clemson fans are starting to get a better visual of what a perfect prototype Tom Allen football player looks like for this Clemson defense?
I really felt like we first got that in the portal where Tom Allen comes in 2025 and the players on that roster, those aren't his guys per se.
No.
They had a lot of talent last year, but it certainly didn't come together like anybody had envisioned. And so going into the portal this offseason, it felt like he was going to get that first taste of control. And not in the sense that he didn't have like a say in personnel before, but being able to go out there and really scout the type of player that he wants to coach. And so when you have what transpired, we're getting guys like Jerome Carter, Corey Myrick, and then the Luke Farrelly type of players out there. Even if Clemson didn't land him, you know the type of archetype he's looking for at linebacker to pair with Sammy Brown. So he started to really see that on the recruiting trail. And so you get guys like Jaden Worth from Dutch Fork, a really versatile defensive lineman. Bryce Kish out of Minnesota, very versatile type of linebacker, 4-star, one of the best in the country. And now this Chandler guy that it felt like down the stretch, this was Tennessee's battle to lose. And Clemson came in, Tom Allen personally came in to see him earlier in the week and really pitched him this plan. And I think Clemson's offer went up as well. So I look at it from a variety of ways. I think you're getting a really versatile player, but at the same time, the teams that Clemson beat out, that's significant too.
Do you think, Grayson, in the next few weeks, months, and maybe July before you really have a good opportunity when Clemson does their open house with the coaching staff, do you think that we will hear a lot from the defensive coordinator on what we've talked about with Clemson having as much talent as they did and what it looked like in the draft with as much defensive talent going? Or do you feel like when we do get to talk to Tom Allen, maybe you already have, and tell me if you have, Tom Allen about that, Do you think it's going to be in the rearview mirror, only focused on 2026? Do you think Tom will spend much time on, man, why that just didn't work last year with all that talent they had on defense?
I think you uncovered it a little bit in the spring, and he almost was talking about it during the season as to why things weren't working out, and sort of insinuated we had to call things a little bit differently last year just because of the personnel, what they were able to achieve. And I think that's more being said about what went down in the secondary and the games that were lost because of some of those players.
Yeah.
And so I think the portal told us a lot about where Clemson felt their deficiencies were. And a lot of that was on the defensive side of the football. And it's jarring, right? Because you have all that talent. TJ Parker going to Buffalo early in the second round, Peter Woods going early in the first round or late in the first round to Kansas City. You had some pieces last year, but it just wasn't very cohesive. So I think when you look to 2026 and what Allen's vision may be or how he maybe ties a bow on 2025 is now we have the right personnel to be able to put it all together. And you felt like you saw that a little bit in the spring. I think safety play in particular will be a lot better. So this commitment sort of to tie it back to that, it feels like it's very much in theme of what we've seen over the last several months since the portal opened.
Grayson, talk about a tweet you sent out about 50 minutes ago here. When you go to the running back position, 4-star running back Gary Walker, he hasn't committed yet, but he has finalists: Virginia Tech, Penn State, Florida State, Clemson, Florida, and Auburn. This is a 27 kid, right?
Yeah.
2027 kid. And you said he's one of Clemson's top targets at running back. Can you go into that a little bit? I know you've had other running backs on Clemson's board in the past couple of months, 6 months or so that have fallen off over time. But how big is this one in your mind when it comes to Gary Walker?
Certainly one of the best running backs in the country. And as things began to shift this spring, it became really clear that Gary was probably Clemson's top target at running back. And so Wednesday will be a big one, Cole. It would be my understanding that this is a battle that Clemson is in the front for, and we'll see if they can take that home over the next several days. But this is not only their top target at running back, it's one of their top targets in general. And this is a kid that really possesses it all in the backfield. It feels like you can do a lot with him, fits the Chad Morris offensive tempo and speed, lots of patience in between the tackles. So there's certainly a lot to like from what Clemson could acquire here in the next several days. This has been an interesting recruitment, Cole, because you had a guy that even before he stepped foot on campus, he had an official visit set with Clemson that's been in the books for the last several months. So it's interesting to see that he's making up his mind before he was set to go. I think his first official visit was this weekend with Stanford, and then he was going to come to Clemson the following weekend. So I would view that as pretty significant. And if Clemson can land Walker in addition to this Chandler prospect earlier today, you're looking at the official visit weekend with a lot of momentum and still a lot of top targets coming into town. So this is the type of momentum, as if you're a Clemson fan right now, the type of momentum, barring you can hold on to these kids till signing day, this is the exact type of momentum you need heading into the end of May.
And when would you say a decision's maybe likely on that one?
With Walker, it's going to be Wednesday afternoon. He's set to announce that. So
this Wednesday.
Yeah.
This Wednesday. Okay. And that's on Grayson Mann's Twitter, Tolos, if you haven't seen it already, just about 50 minutes ago on Twitter at Gray_Man. Let me ask you this. When it comes to this offense, you mentioned Chad Morris there. I know you can't speak for Chad Morris, and you guys on the Daily Beat will be able to talk to him a lot more, Grayson, in the next few months. But, running back position has been interesting over the last couple of years at Clemson. I guess interesting might be putting it lightly, too. They hadn't hit the mark like they had in years past. Do you think Chad Morris saw that as one of the top areas of concern? Like he highlighted that with his highlighter pen that, hey, we've got to be able to get this running game going, and they had pretty good running games when Chad was at Clemson. Some years they didn't, but some years they did. And when it comes to the running game and what wasn't there the past few years, Grayson.
Hey, who remembers Andre Ellington of years past? That cat could fly. But yeah, I would say, and it was, I think a point to note was when Garrett Riley got hired, he sort of made the comment that we're going to be the dirt raid and run the football, and you never really saw that materialize. And with Adam Randall, I think one of the biggest sins of Clemson's 2025 season is I think Adam Randall touched the ball one time in that second half against LSU. You just completely abandoned the run in one of the biggest games of your season, which ended up being the first one. So, and I feel like Randall was a bright spot last year. You just didn't give him the ball enough. And so I think for Chad Morris, you got a promising sophomore in Gideon Davidson. You went into the portal to get a change of pace back in Chris Johnson Jr., who I think can be used more than just the traditional sense of handing him off the ball under center or behind in shotgun. I think you can line him out wide. I think you can put him in a Malachi Tony-esque type of role where you just utilize that speed and see what happens and try to make that go.
And that's the SMU one, right? That's the SMU kid? Okay.
This is not the son of Chris Johnson, by the way. That's been
Thank you for clarifying.
Contention. But interesting certainly is the right word when talking about Clemson running backs, because you had a 1,000-yard rusher in Phil Maffa, and then his shoulder fell off, and you couldn't run him at all in the playoff game, and you didn't really trust anybody beyond that to get it done. And so you had a collection of tailbacks and then freshly transitioned from wide receiver Adam Randall for what became the 2025 starter. So I would say you got some clarity going into this year. I think Gideon Davidson got bigger and a little bit faster, and I think part of that's probably above the shoulders and being a little bit more decisive in between the tackles. We saw a little bit of that during the spring. And there's some other pieces too. Jay Haynes is one we haven't seen in quite some time. Really, I think, elevated that offense late when Phil Maffa was hurt before he tore his ACL. So there are some pieces certainly to work with. And I think Chad Morris, especially with a quarterback in either Vizina or Tate Reynolds, you don't have a ton of experience there. Quarterback's best friend is some big body tight ends, big bodied receivers, and being able to run the football consistently.
No doubt. Before we move off of football to spring sports concluding, am I missing anything? Before we move off, is there anything that I have not mentioned football-wise that we need to talk about?
I think we've hit everything, man.
Okay. All right, good. I just wanted to make sure. I know you'd call me out if I didn't. Let's start with John Rittman, softball, tough loss. I played some audio earlier in the show. It was a 1-0 loss to UNCG, Grayson, and then 5-0 you mentioned in Athens yesterday. There were some times this season where they were a little bit inconsistent, but in the postseason, it's a different beast. What did you not see from Clemson softball maybe this year that you saw last year when it felt like they were a little bit more of a complete team a season ago than they were this year?
Yeah, I think that's the right way to describe it. Is it's a team that had to almost a re-identification of what we've seen in the last several years, because that was a group last year that was really just a sack fly and play from going to the College World Series. They were close as close gets to being able to clinch that series. So it was a different makeup this year, a lot younger of a team. And I think over the weekend, you saw a little bit of inexperience. I think a lot of pitches were probably chased a little too much at the plate there, and really felt like pitching didn't let you down. You lost one game 1-0. So certainly you did enough in the circle to get the job done. And I think what Rittman was probably most proud of was the climb back out of the losers bracket, beating Charleston and then UNCG in back-to-back games on Saturday. Ultimately, you just didn't have the horses to compete with Georgia, and I think that's just kind of what the team's makeup was. It's a young group. There's some promise in there, and getting to the regional championship, I would put that as a success for Rittman this year, especially with who he lost in the offseason. So there's some excitement if you can add another arm in the portal and maybe a couple more consistent hitters. I think you have a chance to be right back where you were last spring with a team that's got an opportunity to host a regional.
I think they've been to 5 of 7 since the program started.
5 of 6. And I don't think they played in the postseason in 2020.
In 2020, you're right. You're right. That's correct. So 5 of 6, pretty good consistency there from John Rittman. On the baseball side, Grayson, Clemson won 1 over the weekend, but lost 2 of 3 to Virginia Tech. It seems like the ship has sailed on the baseball front. Obviously, we'll see what happens tomorrow against Notre Dame, I believe. In Charlotte, but I hate to go ahead and close the book, close the chapter. Are you telling me that I'm wrong for closing the chapter on this year? Is it all but done? Do you think that there's anything else positive that can come from 2026?
When I saw how Friday's game ended, Cole, after covering softball that night, I shut that book pretty quickly. That was pretty inexplicable how game 2 of that Virginia Tech series concluded. There's a chance, but I think ultimately for Clemson to get to the regional, they got to win 5 straight games, and you got to do that against some of the best teams in the country. I just, even if they win 1 or 2, I just don't see this team all of a sudden turning it around. The arms, you don't really have enough to win. Not many teams in the country have enough in a do or die situation to win 5 in a row with as tight of a margin of error as this team has. So if we are sitting here on Monday morning next week and Clemson's an ACC champion, I will gladly eat crow on it, but I would expect either Tuesday or Wednesday, or I would, excuse me, you're talking about Wednesday or Thursday, you're talking about Clemson's season being over after a short run in the ACC championship.
What do you feel like Eric Bakich will put most of the blame on when it's all said and done this year? Because, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. It's not like, and I hate to be this way, but it hadn't just been a meh year. It's been a really bad year. And we hadn't seen that at all, under Eric Bakich and his time at Clemson. When you get to talk to him and he addresses the media, whenever that last time is for the season, what do you believe he will, I guess, hang his hat on when it comes to what Clemson didn't do right in 2025 and 2026?
I'm fascinated to hear his answer, because I think that there's not one particular thing that is if we were to do a pie chart of blame per se, you probably stick an X percentage here, X percentage at fielding, X percentage at inconsistent bats. So I feel like you go into this year, anytime you lose 20 ACC games, there's not just one tiny problem causing that. There's a serious epidemic of issues that are happening within this program. And so it's a big evaluation for Bakich and the staff of what he's going to do next. And so maybe there's a silver lining where you have a little bit more time than most off seasons, where you're done probably a month from now, versus they could be done this time. I guess they start at 5:00 tomorrow. So maybe a few hours from tomorrow, they could be finished with the season, which is a rare point for Clemson athletics in general, is being done this early into the calendar. Used to having a few weeks in June to talk about this baseball team. So I think it's a rare territory for Bakich. I can't blame it on one specific thing, Cole, because I think that we've sat here doing these segments, and maybe one week it's about the fielding. Maybe one week it's really bad pitching weekend. Maybe one weekend Clemson had great work from its staff on the mound, but its offense just couldn't hold any weight and carry that home. So I think this roster needs an overhaul. I think you need to be able to reevaluate a lot of different things. This feels very 2023 Clemson to me, where there was so much maybe riding to the year, maybe not as good of a team, but a very underwhelming year, where that 2023 team that was in the 8-4 in a year where you got Garrett Riley and felt like you were probably destined back for the playoffs. So there's a lot certainly to pull from, and maybe you need that type of overhaul to see how this program responds moving forward. It's going to be one of the more interesting off seasons of the big sports for Clemson.
If you had to look into your crystal ball and predict, let's say you fast forward to 2029 or even 2030, and you look back on this season, 2026, was this just a blip on the radar, or was this a sign of things to come for Eric Bakich?
I think when you have Eric Bakich as your head coach and the one leading the program, I would be willing to bet, if we were betting men, that I would say this is going to be more likely a blip than something more consistent.
Yeah,
I wouldn't expect another 20-loss ACC season. I think Bakich will find the right pieces and find the right tooling to be able to get this thing back on track. Maybe it doesn't look as good as a regional host, but I wouldn't expect them to lose 20 games and it be an epic mess like it has been this year.
Yeah. And then last question for you, Grayson, NBA-wise, I know you're an NBA guy. You've got 4 teams left. Yeah. Who comes out on top in the East and the West?
Man, I hope you're as excited about tonight's start of this series like I am. That's going to be a war.
Thunder?
I said the Spurs were going to make it out of the West originally, but I think OKC, I think that experience, and I think what that offense has been able to do without Jalen Williams, because I think a lot of people have discounted. They've been doing this without their second best player for quite some time. And I think Chet Holmgren is probably your X factor for this series to match up with Wemby. I'm going to have a blast watching it.
Be fun.
I'm going to take OKC out of the West in 7. And then I think that the Knicks are going to take care of Cleveland pretty quickly in about 5 out of the East.
I like it.
So
Knicks, you're going Knicks Thunder? Is that right?
My dream is we get a Game 3 NBA Finals 1-1 tie at MSG. That would be That's all I need at this point is some type of seriously cool moment in the Garden.
I like it. I like it. Grayson, you're the best. As always, we appreciate you, and we'll talk to you next week.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much.
Grayson Mann, TigerNet.com. If you haven't done so already, make sure you give him a follow on Twitter, on X. I will tell you where you can do that. Right here on the Fan Upstate. It's Gray_Man21. Gray_Man21. If you're a Clemson fan, he's a must follow on Twitter, on X. So make sure you give him a follow there. Appreciate his time. We've got to get to our daily wires. We'll get to them next.
If your team needs just one more piece every year, this show is for you. This is Wire to Wire with Cole, Bryson, and Diesel on the Upstate.
Chuck Sanders, here's the sports flash presented by Progressive. NASCAR Cup Series at Dover on Sunday. At the NASCAR All-Star Race, Denny Hamlin took the checkered flag and Chase Briscoe for the win. Eric Jones ran third. 8-1 win for the Braves over the Red Sox on Sunday in Atlanta. They've won 13 of 15 series played this season and improved to 32 and 15 overall. Austin Riley hit a first-inning 3-run homer. Ozzie Albies snapped an 0-for-24 hitless streak, the second longest of his career with a base hit. He struck out 4 over 6 full. The Braves head to Miami tonight to open up a 4-game series against the Marlins, with righty J.R. Ritchie taking the ball. Clemson baseball has the 15th seed in the ACC tournament. They'll take on 10th seed Notre Dame tomorrow night. The winner advances to face 5th seed Miami on Wednesday. Coastal Carolina has the number 2 seed in the Sun Belt tournament. They await an opponent on Wednesday. South Carolina is the 15th seed in the SEC tournament. They play 10th seed Tennessee tomorrow. I'm Chuck Sanders on the Fan Upstate.
How would you react if
Well, we got a lot to get to in this segment where we hit our headlines on this show, Wire to Wire. We call them our daily wires. It's the buzz that's happening. Diesel's not here to do the buzz sound effect. He's out this week, but he will be back next week. Reminder, next Monday is Memorial Day, so we will not have a show 1 week from today, Tolos. Also, Overreaction Monday here in about 10 minutes. Want to hear from you at 844-FAN-PHONE, 844-326-3663. go ahead and get your overreaction ready. After taking 2 of 3 from the Red Sox, the Braves are right back in action tonight in Miami. A 4-game stint against the Miami Marlins. Atlanta now 32-15 on the season, while the Marlins are 21-26. J.R. Ritchie on the mound tonight for the Braves, the young gun. Seeing what he's got against the pretty good Marlins team. They're not great, but we'll see. We'll see. The Braves, by the way, have an 8-game lead over the second-place Phillies in the NL East. Last night in the NBA, the Cleveland Cavaliers defeated the Pistons 125-94 to win the series and advance to the Eastern Conference Finals tonight. In the NBA, you heard Grayson Mann talking about it there. In the Western Conference Finals, the Spurs take on the Thunder. The Cavaliers will take on the Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals beginning tomorrow night. Here locally in Spartanburg High School has named Caleb Gaither its next head boys basketball coach. Gaither served as athletic director at Northwestern High School. He also served as head coach of the Vikings in 2022 for 1 season. Also locally, Spartanburg Christian Academy has named Sam Clark its next head boys basketball coach. Clark previously served as an assistant coach under Lane Fowler at Burns High School. Clark will replace Ben Johnson, who left SCA for Southside Christian earlier this year. You also, if you ever listened to Burns football, you heard Sam Clark for the past, 8-9 years on the sideline, serving as the sideline reporter. So sad to see him go, but happy for Sam as he is now the new head boys basketball coach at Spartanburg Christian Academy. Nashville is expected to be named host of the next Super Bowl. No, I'm sorry. Host of the Super Bowl in 2030 by NFL team owners who will vote for the city on Tuesday during the spring league meeting. The New Orleans Pelicans are hiring former Orlando Magic coach Jamal Mosley as the franchise's new head coach on a 5-year contract, sources told ESPN. Until Sunday, Aaron Rai was best known for being the PGA Tour golfer who played with 2 gloves. Now, Rai will be remembered as the first English-born golfer to win the PGA Championship in more than a century after his stunning victory at Aronimink Golf Club over the weekend. Good luck to several area teams tonight in high school baseball and softball playoffs. Chesney softball on the road at Saluda. Boiling Springs on the road at Burns tonight softball. Chesney baseball is on the road at Batesburg, Leesville. And Chapman, the Chapman Panthers tonight in baseball, hosting the Woodruff Wolverines in a big upper state matchup. So a lot of really good high school baseball and softball going on this week. Also, graduation at the high school level. Most graduations in the upstate this week. Tolos, if you haven't checked, you might want to check to see if you have a family member or friend graduating. A lot of graduations have already been moved to earlier this week due to some inclement weather. Clemson baseball will end the regular season 31-25, 10-20 in the ACC. Tigers lost 2 of 3 over the weekend to Virginia Tech. They'll play Notre Dame tomorrow in Charlotte in the ACC tournament. John Rittman, Clemson softball, their season came to an end over the weekend as well. 2 losses in the NCAA tournament to UNCG and Georgia. Monty Lee and the Gamecocks finished the regular season 22-24, 7-23 in SEC play after being swept by Vandy over the weekend. They will play Tennessee tomorrow in Hoover, Alabama. South Carolina softball finishes the season 32-28, 17-17 in SEC play after losing twice to UCLA over the weekend. Landon Powell and North Greenville, unfortunately, their season came to an end this weekend as the Trailblazers lost twice to Francis Marion over the weekend in Tigerville. A couple of tough losses, and their season is done. Last one for you tonight in the NHL. The Canadiens battle the Sabres in a series tied at 3 apiece. Those are your Daily Wires. Tolos, next segment. It's Overreaction Monday. Want to hear what your overreaction is? Call the show 844-326-3663. That's next.
Cole Bryson.
On the Fan Upstate.
Mondays are for overreactions on this show, and it's time for you to overreact. 844-326-3663. You can also overreact on the Joy Law Firm text line. It's 844-FAN-PHONE. That's FANFONE. Appreciate the 85 watching the show right now on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, and those listening on the Odyssey app, iHeart Radio app, and on 97.1 FM Spartanburg, 97.7 FM Greenville, 101.5 FM in Anderson. Whatever your overreaction is, want to hear it. Is it Clemson related? Is it South Carolina related? Is it Kevin Schnall related? That name starting to be thrown around a lot more these days. We'll talk to Jack Veltri of Gamecock Central coming up in about 20 minutes on the show. He's on the road to Hoover, Alabama, to cover the Gamecocks and their SEC tournament appearance. So we'll see what he's got to say on that front. But obviously, Gamecock baseball front of mind right now with the coaching search coming up very, very soon. I don't think this SEC tournament in Hoover is going to be going to last too long for the Gamecocks. But it might be your overreaction might be about Pittsburgh and Aaron Rodgers. That was the biggest news over the weekend from an NFL standpoint. Aaron Rodgers announcing at 42 years old that he is returning to the NFL, a $22 million contract for a 42-year-old quarterback. What's that say about Will Howard? That might be your overreaction as well. Whatever it is, want to hear from you. 844-326-3663. Let's start off with Dan B. Dan mentioned earlier on the stream that it was something NASCAR related, a long explanation, something. Dan, is that right? What are we talking about here today?
Yeah, so this was All-Star Weekend in Dover, and it was a slightly different format than in the past, on a bigger track than normal. So there were some things lots of people were predicting would happen. And so let's start off. You have this pit crew challenge on Saturday, which is integrated into the qualifying for the first part of the race. And so the pit crew challenge is what will award the best pit crew in this competition. And it used to be, I think it was more of a heads up competition and like a bracket format. I could be wrong on that, but this one, it was integrated into the qualifying. So the driver would drive out, drive a full lap around, get up to speed, start a whole lap, and then come into pit, go back out, and then finish that second lap. And that whole time was the qualifying time. And then the pit crew was graded on the entry of the car into the pit box and the exit. So part of that was driver. It was was part of the scoring, which some people don't agree with. If it's a pit crew challenge, it should be just pit crew time. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so it was an interesting way to do qualifying, and it integrated into the pit crew challenge. Okay, it was kind of fun to watch, I guess. You didn't really have a good sense of the pit crew itself, other than when they just put the time up. Mm-hmm. But anyway, moving on. So then Sunday, the race, is starting with 36 cars. Some drivers, a lot, are already automatically going to be in the final part of the race. So the race is broken up into, I guess they still call them stages, but it's not your typical stages. The stage 1, 75, stage 2 inverts the field, do another 75. And you had a group of drivers that were trying to get into what would then be the race, the last 200 laps. So there's questions as when did the race actually start? Technically, and all this other stuff. So in the first heat, I guess leave it at that. You had 36 drivers, and within the first few laps, like 18 cars got in some way damaged, including some of the big ones like your Blaney's, your Elliott, Kyle Larson, and among others. And some of those cars, went to the garage and could be worked on. It's like, okay. So then they do the full heat. I think Denny came in second. I forget who won it. And then they invert the field. And so when they inverted the field based on, then at the end of that first stage, there was another big wreck. And some of the cars that would have been at the top of the next stage when they inverted, they're in the garage. So the first 4 cars on the next starting list, 1 through 4, they're all in the garage. So then like number 5 ends up starting number 1, and then it started getting really confusing. So then they run it, and that was more of a clean 75 laps, no big deal. Denny ends up running all the way to the front among some other fast drivers, Tyler Reddick and whatnot. And so their combined position is what your first, like if you were first and then fourth, and you add it up, and then that gives you a total number of 5. You add up all the numbers of the 2 heats, and then that's how you start the 200 lapper. I guess the real race, right?
Oh.
So Danny starts up front. I think it was with Chase or Reddick or whoever, and it was kind of just a normal Dover race. Great, it was fine. I mean, fun to watch. You had a competition caution at 75, and then there was, they knew they'd have to stop again, so it made tire saving and that kind of thing. Like, it made it a decent race. You could pass and all this other stuff. But what was also interesting was that a car like Blaney, he was able to get his car fixed. I think Larson did too. But Blaney was able to race in the 200-lap race, even though he didn't finish either of the first 2 heats. So you're wondering, well, why would you even race those anyway?
Yeah. I'll tell you this. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
They shouldn't have. A lot of people disagree. The people that were trying to get into the All-Star race, they should have been the only ones on the track, like it was in the past. Like they're trying to compete for one of 6 spots or something like that, and then you have the fan favorite. Well, and what ends up interesting there is that like the top 5 or 6 of the people who weren't in it that got fan votes, they all got in. So like Daniel Suarez, I think he was 6th or 7th in the voting, and he gets in as the fan favorite. And you're just like, well, wait, but he wasn't the fan favorite. So it was so bizarre.
It sounds bizarre. Dan, not to cut you off. It sounds bizarre, and I'll say this: I didn't watch the All-Star race, but you describe it, and no offense to you, put me to sleep. And if that put me to sleep, I can't imagine what the race was like. They've got to do something. They've got to do something. I mean, I would hate to see what the ratings were like. Do you think anybody watched last night?
Well, and that was the other problem. It was a day. It started at 1:00 in the afternoon.
Oh, okay.
And it went for almost 5 hours.
Ugh.
That was so yes. That makes everyone's like, no, way too long. It needs to be a Saturday night race at a short track.
Right.
Doesn't have to be like your shortest of tracks, like your Bowman Grace, but it needs to be shorter than a mile. You got to make it like a bumping, like passable, but you got to make it more of a fun race. And I think they will fix it. There's already talk of it being at the Nashville Fairgrounds potentially next year. I don't know anything about that track, but yeah. So, I mean, I've enjoyed watching it. I do think the ratings, there's the Jeff Gluck poll every Monday.
Yeah.
I sit on 35%, which is pretty low. So, yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
We'll see if they can fix it. They need to fix it. They need to fix a lot, but we'll see if they can start with that. Dan, thanks for the call, man.
All right.
844-326-3663. NASCAR has a lot to fix, but we'll see if they can start with the All-Star race. Let's go to Kev, who's up next. What's up, Kev?
Hello?
Go ahead, Kev. You there?
Hey, can you hear me, Coach?
I got you loud and clear. What's up, man?
Well, I had to pull over for a minute because that Yankee about put me to sleep talking about that NASCAR race, too. We don't care about NASCAR anymore. It's spring.
Wider, what's your name?
Cole. They're finishing up baseball with my Gamecocks suck. They didn't do real good, but you can take this and you can take it to the bank. And you don't laugh at me when I tell you how I know this. But there's a burner on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. And you know how those burners are. They generally just talk a bunch of mess. But this one is 10 for 10. Dating back about 3 years. Same guy. And he says South Carolina is finalizing a deal with, I can't pronounce his last name, at Coastal Carolina. And it's got all the Chanticleers up in arms today. And they're not real happy about it. Yeah, that's him.
Okay.
Then you got all the other media folks. They up in arms about it because they didn't get to break the story first. You know how that pisses them guys off.
Yeah.
My buddies Wes and them, they don't get mad about it. But Whittle and some of them boys, boy, they don't like it when somebody else breaks the story. But
so you're saying
things has got to get better in Columbia.
Are you? Let me ask you this though: if you're a Gamecock fan, and let's say it is Kevin Schnall, are you happy with that as a Gamecock fan?
Yes, I am. I mean, I don't know how that you could look across the landscape of college ball
and not
pick
be
anyone else.
No, I'm with you.
I mean, I'm a big alumni guy usually, and I think you at least got to have a cup of coffee with Landon Powell. People can say, "Oh, it's just North Greenville." It don't matter. The difference between a baseball player at North Greenville and the one at the University of South Carolina is how much better they get on base.
Yeah,
and it's very, they're splitting hairs at that point. It's some would say it's harder to win at North Greenville.
No doubt.
If he can win there, he should be able to easily win in the SEC with all those resources.
No doubt.
And I agree with that. With that group of folks that says that, I agree with it.
Well, let's see. So you said the burner is 10 for 10, and would this make 10 or would this make 11 if he was right?
This would make 10. I apologize.
So
I just assume he's going to be right. He always is.
Yeah.
There's folks even took his tweet and cut his stuff out of it word for word and been posting it on the Facebook.
Oh yeah.
All these people looking for clicks. And, I think that's who it's going to be, but I would rather it be Landon Powell. I'm not mad that it's Schnall, but I would rather it be Landon. I think Landon is I think he's a winner, man. Kids respond to him.
No doubt about that.
That's all baseball is.
He's definitely a winner. He is a winner. Kev, thanks for the call, man.
Yes, sir.
844-326-3663. He is a winner, and we'll see. We'll see if the old burner account's 10 for 10, as Kev says. I think there's a very good chance he's right. I think there's a very good chance it is Kevin Schnall. I have been told that's the name they're going after first, and we'll see if it is. Again, like I said earlier in the show, I don't know if it'll be anytime soon. Usually it's June, but we shall see. Let's keep it rolling. Overreaction Monday, 844-326-3663. We go to Somerville. Tom in Somerville. What's on your mind, Tom?
Hey, guys. Y'all talking about NASCAR. There ain't nothing to me. Well, there's a few sports, including the WNBA, that I find less interesting than NASCAR. And I have never I've never sat down and watched a NASCAR race in full. I probably never will. And I'm going to the one in Nashville in 2 weeks, and I could care less what happens.
Why are you going then? Why are you going?
We're going for a buddy's little getaway bachelor event. That's what he wanted to do. It's his weekend. We're going to do what he wants to do. I'm just going for the beer. That's the only reason I'm going to the race. Now, going back to what Kevin said a minute ago, I'm all for defunding On3 and these other paid websites, because the thing is, when you got a school like the University of South Carolina, for instance, it doesn't take long to figure out the info that you want to find out. You pick up the phone, you call the people who have been with the university long enough, whether they're the big dollar supporters, whatever the case may be. If you call enough people in this state, you will get answers. And it ain't coming from a website named On3. I can promise you that. Now, I don't know if Snow will be the head coach, but I do know that he is the first call you make. And it appears like it is looking that direction.
Yeah.
Hopefully Carolina can figure it out. I'm not confident that they will make it happen because, let's be honest, this university has not done well with making hires the last 10 years. Now, I want to go back to the NASCAR point real quick. Cole, if you had the option, if you had one TV and you could only watch one event this time of year, are you watching NASCAR or are you watching the Braves? If they're on at the exact
Well, that's not even a question, Tom. The Braves.
Exactly. Nobody is watching NASCAR over things like baseball, whether it's the college, tournament starting up. Heck, the softball was extremely entertaining this past weekend.
Yeah.
And then you got the Braves on top of that. You got the UFL as well. There's just more on TV to watch that I think is entertaining to the more common person in today's society.
No, I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. Hey, before I let you go real quick on the Carolina thing, last question for you. You're a Gamecock fan, and Cav was talking about it too. Is Kevin Schnall a home run hire?
Oh, he'd be a Grand Slam hire.
Okay.
Grand Slam in the Bobby Knight to win a national championship.
Gotcha.
I mean, there's probably not many coaches that are better fit for the job than Kevin Schnall.
Okay. I just wanted to make – I agree with – I don't disagree. I just think, we're not this time around, we're not talking about a lot of the other names out there. Usually we're talking a lot about the other guys, and we're not doing that this time, you know?
No, yeah. No, he's clearly the number one candidate.
Yeah. I'm with you.
So it's just a matter of what he wants to do at this point.
Tom, thanks for the call as always.
Go Gamecocks.
Tom in Somerville, I accidentally cut him off before he said something about Clemson there. Tom in Somerville, always appreciate the phone call. Next on Overreaction Monday, we go to Dale. Dale, what's up, man?
So two things. First, are you actually going to be on Chesney Highway on Wednesday?
I'll actually be on Chesney Highway, the Ingles at, 2375 Chesney Highway, right off of 85, right?
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, man. The big city.
My neck of the woods.
I will
All
say,
right.
I'll tell you this. I did about 6 months ago, I did request for Ingles to kind of change it up some to get more. Like last week when I was out of the country, Diesel went to the one on Pine Street. It was the first time we've been there, trying to change it up a little bit and hit some that we haven't hit near as much, you know?
Yeah, well, that's good. I mean, get out.
Are you gonna have the Chesney contingency out there waiting on us when we get there?
I mean, what, all seven of us?
It's a good point. Good point.
All right. So now that that's out of the way, let's talk Cowboys, my guy.
All right.
Okay. Since you filled my 520 slot with some other dude that you're gonna talk to, whatever about Gamecock, whatever. All right. Go ahead and pull up the schedule real quick. I got it right here printed in front of me.
You printed it?
Okay? Of course I did.
Jeez.
I told you I wanted win-loss. I'm going to
All right.
down,
Hold on.
buddy. You ready?
Hold on. Hold your horses there, Dylan. 2026. I've got it. I'm ready. I've got it up. What are we?
All right,
We're going win-loss?
At the Giants.
That's the first game of the year. That's a win.
Yes, that's the win. Versus the Redskins.
You can't say that. It's the Commanders. You're a racist now.
Okay.
Win.
Win. Versus the Ravens.
That one's in Mexico. Or wherever it is. I'm going to go loss there.
Okay, I'm going because the next game at the Texans, I'm going to count as the loss.
Okay. I'll go win
Okay.
in Houston. I've got them 3-1.
Okay, I also have them 3-1. The Bucks at home.
Win 4-1.
I agree. Yes. At Green Bay.
4-2. They can't.
think that's
They
a
can't.
loss.
They can't win there for some reason. 4-2.
I think that's a loss. Okay. At Philly.
4-3.
I agree.
Okay.
Versus the Cardinals.
5-3.
Okay. At the Colts.
6-3.
Boy, we are right on. We're lockstep and key right now.
Okay.
Okay. Versus the 49ers at home.
I'll go 7-3.
I'm taking that as a loss.
Okay.
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 I have versus the Titans.
8-3.
Okay. I have 7-4.
Okay.
All right. Versus Philly, Thanksgiving Day. I
Yeah.
don't know about you, but I eat birds on Thanksgiving. So
Yeah.
that's a win.
Well, I put them as a loss the first time, so I'll go win 9-3.
Okay. At Seattle.
9-4.
Okay. I have that as a loss.
Okay.
We have the bye week.
Yep.
Then we stay out there and we go to the Rams.
9-5.
Okay. I also have that as a loss.
Yeah, 2 in a row.
I'm at
You're 8-4.
6.
8-6. I'm sorry. You're 8-6. I'm 9-5.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then versus the Jaguars, old Trevor Sunshine.
10th win. What am I at? 10-6. Is that right?
No, you're at 10-4
10-5.
right now.
10-4.
10-5.
10-5. Yeah, I think it's 10-5.
10-5.
10-5.
10-5.
I'm at 10-5.
Giants.
11-5.
Okay, I have that as a win too. And at whoever you want to call them.
Commanders.
To me, they'll always be the other team. Okay.
12-5. 12-5.
I have 11-6.
I'll take either one.
I think 11-6 will be good enough for a wild card.
Yeah,
I do
you're not
think
winning the
it's
division at
different.
11. I don't think you win the division at 11-6.
I will tell you, I do believe that it is the Commanders' turn to win that division.
Disagree with you there.
I can't back Philly. They're going to give away A.J. Brown to somebody.
No,
and
man.
They're going to lose that possession guy.
It's Dallas's year to win the division.
No, there's no way. Not at 11-6. There's no way.
Well, they're not going to. I just told you they're winning 12 games.
Okay, well, see, look, I'm glad you have that kind of optimism.
I do.
don't see 12 wins there.
Yep.
I see 11 at the most.
Come on, Dale. Believe, baby, believe.
I'm believing that 11 wins is going to be 4-7 we had last year.
We'll see. Thanks for the call, Dale.
All right.
Overreaction Monday. We've got time for one more before we run to a break. We've got a guest coming up. Cocky for a reason. The last one for today's Overreaction Monday. What's up, Cocky?
I know you're up against a break. I know what happened to Dewey.
What happened?
What happened to Dewey just happened to me. He had to sit through a message listening to some guy talk about Dallas football, and I'm triggered.
Are you a hater
I'm
just like
triggered.
everybody else?
No, it's just that I'm a Panther fan who won last year.
Panthers won last year. I was there. Trust me, it was miserable. I was miserable, but congrats. You got us. I'll give it to you. Look, I'm not a sore loser. I can admit it was a bad game. Rico Dowdle kind of gave it back to us in that game. You know, he used to play for us, so it was a Rico Dowdle game. I'll give it to you. What's your Panthers prediction? Think they win 9-10 games?
No, I'm gonna go 9. Yeah, I think
that's
9.
safe. I think that's safe.
Yeah.
Cocky for a reason. Anything else?
Landon.
You want Landon as the Gamecock? Okay, I'm with you. I like it.
But I'm not mad if Kevin gets it. It's still solid either way.
Either way, you're happy.
Either way, happy.
Thanks, Cocky. Appreciate you, man.
Hi, man.
844-326-3663. That was Overreaction Monday. Let's talk Gamecocks. Jack Veltri, Gamecock Central, next. let's start with what's happening. You're on the way to Hoover, Alabama for the SEC championship. Just to be quite blunt, quite frank, Jack, how long will the Gamecocks be in Hoover?
I have 2 shirts packed with me that I'll wear for potentially up to 2 days. And I am fully expecting the Gamecocks to probably go one and done against Tennessee tomorrow. Look, when you're on a 12-game losing streak, there's not much optimism that all of a sudden things are going to change. So I have 2 shirts packed just in case, but I'm fully anticipating not only using one of them tomorrow, and that's it.
That is incredible. That is a great answer. So there's your interesting conversation for the week. Jack Veltri has packed 2 shirts. Will he use all 2? Will he use both shirts? We'll see. Now, that does not include the one you have on today, right?
No. This is like collared shirts I'm talking about.
Nice
I
shirts.
have my suitcase and everything. Nice shirts. I should have prefaced that. I have 2 collared shirts for work. I have other clothes.
Okay.
I did not just bring shirts and nothing else, so we're good.
Tolos at 844-326-3663. If you're a Gamecock fan, will Jack wear both shirts in Hoover, Alabama? Let's get the text line going on that. I think you're right, Jack. Tennessee's, 23 in the country? You said it. South Carolina's lost 12 in a row. When it's all said and done, Monty Lee, great story, local ties. How do you think this chapter ends? Is it an ugly ending? Does Monty understand the situation? How do you think this Monty Lee story concludes?
He really wants the job. That's really obvious at this point. Is it realistic that he gets the job? I don't think so. I think with some of the candidates that we're going to talk about here that it seems like South Carolina will definitely pursue. I just wonder where Monty kind of falls in the pecking order of that. Like, if Carolina doesn't get its top guy, then where do they go from there? Look, Monty's a really nice guy. He's a great coach, I think. I think he got put into a pretty bad situation this season that, look, if you put anyone in that seat of where he is in the dugout, I don't think many coaches succeed out there. Not this year. Not with the current mess that South Carolina baseball's in. So, ultimately, to answer the question, I don't think he's going to be the one to get this job, but I definitely think he, whether he's here next year or I think he should still find a place in baseball. I don't think his days as a head coach are officially done. I think he could end up on his feet somewhere, but I just don't see him being in South Carolina as the next head coach.
Jack, I would lean no if the question was asked if Monty Lee stays on staff. Would you also lean no to that?
Yeah, I would also probably agree. Now, part of him coming back initially as an assistant on staff when Palmetto was hired was the fact that he got, a huge raise. He became the highest paid assistant coach in college baseball. I don't see South Carolina increasing that number. And plus, at the same time, whoever you bring in as the new coach is probably bringing their own staff with them. So, look, Monty is a great resource to also have from the standpoint of a guy that understands the importance of South Carolina needing to get back to really hammering in-state recruiting. Maybe that's where he falls in line, but I don't know. I mean, that hasn't been asked yet to Monty of, do you want to be here next year regardless of whether it's as a head coach or on staff in general? We don't know that answer yet, and quite frankly, I think he knows that maybe a head coaching job will open up elsewhere. Maybe that's something he can get. I don't know what he really wants to do beyond just being the head coach here. I know that he does want to do that, though.
We're talking to Jack Veltri, Gamecock Central. Make sure you give him a follow on Twitter. Make sure you let him know that you heard him right here on the Fan Upstate, Spartanburg, Greenville, and in Anderson. When it comes to the search, do you have any idea? Do you have any intel on where Jeremiah Donati is in the search process right now?
So the latest that I know is, again, specific candidates haven't been specified. We can only go off of what we're hearing and whatnot. But as far as the search for Donati, they've already gotten the process underway. With the I think the assessment phase is the way he phrased it.
Yeah.
And that they're going to be using a search firm. And he kind of mentioned it in the last Garnet and Black road trip stop in Columbia 2 weeks ago. A lot of it is really going to depend on when seasons end for these coaches. Because you got to keep in mind, Cole, most of the candidates, if not all of them that South Carolina is going to go after, they're going to be in the middle of the postseason. And, the odds are you're not going to hire or really get talking to these coaches in depth until after their season ends. So
I think that's kind of the timeline right now for Donati is, yes, the search firm will help narrow out who the real candidates need to be for this job and where you need to go with talking to agents and whatnot. But as far as making the official hire, I think that's probably going to be, sometime within the next few weeks as June gets rolling around.
Jack, we had a caller in the last segment in our Overreaction Monday bring up Kevin Schnall, and obviously that's the big name right now. But Kevin said that he also thinks Jeremiah Donati should have at least a cup of coffee with Landon Powell. Now that Landon Powell's season has come to an end at North Greenville, do you think that the search firm or Jeremiah Donati or anyone will have a conversation with Landon?
Here's the way I look at it, Cole. If he wasn't a South Carolina alum, if he was not a former player here, would you even have him on the hot board? That's the way I look at it. He's a great coach, no doubt about it. He understands the standard here at South Carolina, and I think he would fan base. But the fact of the matter is, Cole, he's only ever coached D2 baseball. You need someone that is not only a proven winner, but has done it at this level. I'm talking about the Division I, power conference level. And Landon's great, but I don't think he necessarily fits the billing of what Carolina is going to be looking for. So I don't anticipate he'll be on the hot boards. He'll be a guy that if the job is offered to him, he'll be a guy to say yes, absolutely. But does that mean he's going to be the head coach here? Will Jeremiah even call him? I don't know the answer to that, but odds are I'd probably say probably not, because you have so many other guys that I think you should be looking at hiring before him, just because the experience factor really does have to matter here.
Yeah, and look, I'm with you on the whole Kevin Schnall thing. I think he's obviously number one in a lot of people's mind, but just to play devil's advocate, what do you consider the gap when you talk about a guy like Landon, who's won at the Division II level and won with Division I players? When you say, and other people say, not just putting you on the spot, but when people say he hadn't done it at the D1 level, what do you think he hasn't experienced at the Division II level that would kind of hurt him if he were at that Division I level?
Just the experience of being at the D2 level. There's we see it right now with South Carolina struggling this season because their roster is most schools and JUCO and lower levels of college baseball, and we see them struggling against, higher quality pitching that they just weren't facing at a smaller school. So I'm kind of bringing it up as a little bit of a reference point analogy, because I think it's the same way with coaching of, he just doesn't have the, going up against the power. We just don't know. We just don't have a reference point of how he would do against, SEC competition, right? If South Carolina hires him, you're kind of going in one. The way I look at it, it's kind of like hiring an assistant coach, one of the big name assistants like a Will Coggin or a Nolan Gain. Sure, they may be great in the long run, but we just don't know what they're truly going to be because there is no reference point to look at of here's what they've done as a Division I college baseball coach. There's just no point, of a reference essentially.
Yeah, and to keep playing the side that I'm going to play here, how's that any different than when Shane Beamer was hired?
That's a good point. But I think it's different because South Carolina football, look, football obviously is the moneymaker here. But South Carolina football is not this historically national championship winning program. South Carolina baseball is the best program, for a long time that especially on the men's side of things, that this university has had. And I think the standard is just different. Yes, obviously football, you're trying to win a national championship, but let's be honest. Carolina, the expectation should be to win 8-9 games. With baseball, the expectation for a lot of people, even during the bad years, is to eventually get back to Omaha. So you need someone that can get you there. And if you asked me 2 years ago who South Carolina should hire, I would have said maybe hire one of these, under the radar guys. Maybe hire the hotshot assistant out there. But in this current climate, to get back to where Carolina needs to be, I don't think there can be any risks with this hire.
You're saying they can't afford to. You're saying they can't afford to, right?
it's not that they can't hire somebody like that. Like, if it came down to it, I don't think it would be the worst thing to hire a guy like an assistant or Landon Powell. But if Kevin Schnall is out there and you want to hire him, or Dan Fitzgerald, you'd be crazy not to go out after those guys first and foremost.
Sure. Talking to Jack Veltri, Gamecock Central, do you have any insight on when a timeline's expected? I mean, I think the past 3 or 4 coaches, Jack, going all the way back to Holbrook, have all happened in June, mid-June. I know it's right now it's mid-May, so you've got some time. And you said it, most of the candidates are still playing. You would expect this to be June as well?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely going to be June. I think, conference tournaments are this week. So you're talking about all the candidates that you have in mind are going to be in tournaments. And then next week is regionals. And a lot of almost pretty much all the candidates out there are playing in the postseason at this point. So let's just preface that. And then you got super regionals the week after that. And then the College World Series runs up until June 22nd or 23rd, I want to say. So you're talking about potentially waiting all the way up until late June. But I think realistically, maybe a few candidates fall out early. Not all these candidates are going to be playing in Omaha. So I think, especially if it's your top guys like a Schnall, I'm thinking mid-June at the probably, I don't want to put an exact date on it, but I would say sometime in early to mid-June.
Do you feel as if Gamecock fans, Jack, would all agree that Schnall would be a Grand Slam hire? Is that a Grand Slam hire in your mind?
It's a very good hire. I try not to use those terms because I called Paul Maneri a home run hire, and look how that turned out. So, I think he should be the first guy you want to hire. If it's not going to be him, Cole, I think, Dan Fitzgerald would be really good at Kansas. He seems to be someone to keep an eye on. I think a James Ramsey from Georgia Tech. There's more. Let me just put it this way. Kevin Schnall is great, and I think he's exactly what this program needs. But there's other guys out. There are other fish in the sea, is the way I'm trying to put it. If they don't get Schnall, there are other really good candidates out there, I think.
Do you think Schnall would leave? I mean, he's a Coastal guy. That's what people keep saying. I mean, is it a no-brainer to leave Coastal for South Carolina?
I don't think it is. I don't think it's as simple as getting up and leaving. Because, look, he didn't leave for the Tennessee job last October when he interviewed for that job. So if he's not leaving for the Tennessee job, what's to think he wants to leave for the South Carolina job? Especially considering, look, the money's going to be better, obviously, if he goes to Carolina. That's obvious. He's only making $500K a year right now. But if he goes to South Carolina, he'll make a lot more money. But it may not just be about money. He's a Coastal guy through and through. He played at Coastal. He coached under Gary Gilmore for so many years. And now he's the head coach there, and he's got his family there. So it's there's other factors going into it. He may just really like being at Coastal ultimately at the end of the day. That may be why he turned the Tennessee job down. So, it's tough to say, but, I mean, Carolina would definitely be, I think, a little bit, I mean, it would be a little bit of a step up over Coastal, I'd say, just from a resource standpoint of what you can have there.
Jack, Paul Maneri was, I believe, at 1.3. If Kevin Schnall were to get the job, do you expect Schnall to be above 1.3 million?
Yeah, I've been asked that question. The phrasing of it's been, will South Carolina pay over $2 million for a coach? Without knowing for sure, I feel like that would be the logical next step here. If you get the coach, if you're looking for the coach you want, yeah, I would say it would probably be, if it's probably at or definitely more than what you would be paying Paul Maneri. Just because I think, I don't know how Jeremiah's going to approach this thing. If he'd be desperate for a Schnall or Fitzgerald or Ramsey or whatever. You just don't want to overpay, I'd say. But if you're trying to get the right candidate, yeah, I would think it's probably going to be more than what you paid Paul.
Well, what's your prediction? Let's before we let you go, if you put your prediction hat on, what happens, Jack?
Oh man, I won't give a specific. I will say this: I think it's either going to be Schnall or Dan Fitzgerald.
Okay.
I really like Fitzgerald. I honestly kind of like Fitzgerald just as much as I do Schnall. Schnall's a great coach. He's obviously the most popular choice. But if you take a look at how Fitzgerald has turned a program like Kansas from nothing into really impressive what he's been able to do there. So those would be my two guys I keen in on most.
Jack, you're the best. Safe travels. We always appreciate your time. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, thanks, Cole. Appreciate you.
Jack Veltri, Gamecock Central. Make sure you give him a follow on Twitter, on X, and good stuff. Good debate. It's always fun to go back and forth and see what his opinion is on who would be a good candidate, who wouldn't be, and time shall tell, I guess, a couple of weeks, probably 2 to 3 weeks, maybe even 4, maybe a month before we have a Gamecock coach. Like you said, a lot of these candidates might be coaching for a few more weeks. Let's continue the conversation, though. 5:45 segment coming up. NBA Conference Final set. What are the spreads? What are those staying in the know? What's Vegas think? Who does Vegas think will be in the NBA championship? Who do you think will be there? We'll get to it next. Well, the conference finals are set in the association. If you're an NBA guy, I know all of you Tolos out there don't love the NBA, but if you are, want to hear from you at 844-326-3663. Who you think will advance? Texter from the 869 gets in during the break and says Thunder versus Knicks in the finals. That is a conversation that that Grayson Mann and I had a couple of hours ago on the show as well. Tonight it begins 8:30 Spurs Thunder game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. Oklahoma City favored by 6.5 points. And boy, I look forward to this one. I think this one will be a lot of fun. I have watched the NBA playoffs this season. I haven't watched as much as I have in years past, but I have watched, and I enjoyed the Timberwolves Spurs series. But I really think I'll enjoy Spurs Thunder. I think this one could be the best series yet. Wemby versus SGA. SGA was just named the MVP, league MVP back-to-back years. So I think this one could be a lot of fun. Oklahoma City tonight at home, favored by 6.5 points. Both teams 60-plus wins on the season. And then tomorrow night, Cleveland versus New York. That game at 8 o'clock tomorrow night. New York, as of right now, and obviously still over 24 hours, this one could change. New York is favored by 7.5 points. That's a lot of points. I mean, I like New York to win the series. They've been blowing teams out, but 7.5 feels like a lot. Donovan Mitchell averaging 27.9 points per game. But again, Jalen Brunson, 27 points per game from him as well. So I prefer the Western Conference Finals. I think that one will be the more intriguing series between the Spurs and the Thunder that get going tonight. I like the Knicks to win that series in 5 or 6 against Cleveland. Let's say 6. I'll give Cleveland 2. I'll go Knicks in 6 in the East, and I'll go Thunder in. I'll go Thunder in 6. Both in 6. Both go 6. No game 7s. Thunder in 6. New York in 6 is my prediction there. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Again, Oklahoma City favored tonight by 6.5 points at home against the Thunder. Tolos, will you be watching tonight at 8:30, or will you be watching the Braves try to get another win against the Miami Marlins? A little Braves update for you, by the way, breaking news. Walt Weiss talking about Ronald Acuna. The Braves have reinstated Ronald Acuna Jr. from the injured list and placed infielder Kyle Farmer on the 10-day IL, backdated to May 16th with a right strained forearm. So Ronald Acuna Jr. is back, but Walt Weiss said yesterday that the Braves were hesitant to have Acuna play on Miami's turf. I mentioned that earlier in the show, but for whatever reason, the club has decided that they would activate him. He worked out well today. It moved the plan up a day. He is not in today's lineup, Braves fans, but there is a good chance that Ronald Acuna Jr. might be back in the lineup tomorrow night, as early as tomorrow night. So that's surprising because, again, the news over the weekend was they would not activate him because of the turf in Miami, not wanting to take any risk there. But, boy, would that be fun? Would that be a welcome surprise? Tonight's lineup, you have Drake Baldwin, Albies, Olsen batting third, cleanup Austin Riley, Michael Harris, Dubon, Smith as a DH, Kim batting 8th, and Yastrzemski batting 9th. And it's J.R. Ritchie, on the mound tonight for the Atlanta Braves. So it's Baldwin, Albies, Olsen, Riley, Harris, Dubon, Smith, Kim, Yastrzemski, and then J.R. Ritchie on the bump. Braves trying to get win number 2 in a row. It is a 4-game series, by the way. 4-game series this week against the Miami Marlins. Hour number 4 of the show next.
upstate.
Well, Tolos, it's hour number 4 of the show. Where you at on this Monday? Hope your Monday has been a good one. Hope your week's off to a good start. Appreciate Grayson Mann for joining the show earlier today. Also want to say thanks to Jack Veltri, who just joined the show not long ago, a few minutes ago, to talk Gamecock baseball. So very much appreciate him. And good stuff from both of them. Do want to remind you, if you're a Braves fan, it's time to talk to, one of my favorite guests. He'll join the show tomorrow, Lindsey Crosby, the host of Braves Today. He joined Diesel and I don't know, 2 to 3 weeks ago, and has agreed to join us bi-weekly every other Tuesday starting tomorrow. So Lindsey Crosby, who came on the show a few weeks back, will join me tomorrow. Diesel's on vacation this week. So if you have not heard Lindsey yet, man, he's one of the best Braves guests you'll hear out there. Again, he's the host of Braves Today. He'll join the show tomorrow at 4:22. So excited for that, Tolos. If you are just now turning it on and leaving it on, phone lines are open. Joy Law Firm text line open as well, 844-326-3663. I just opened the phone lines up, so they're open if you want to get in the very final hour of the show. We're going to hit some headlines, some daily wires that we've missed earlier, get you caught up on what's happening across the sports world. But if you just tuned in for the first time today, let me know how your Monday's going. If you missed Overreaction Monday, here's your mulligan, your second chance to get your overreaction in. Again, 844-326-3663. If you're a first-time caller, if you've never called the show before, that's okay. Would love to hear from you for the very first time. Again, it's 844-326-3663. Overreaction Monday about an hour ago. Really good stuff. If you missed it, I'll give you a mulligan. I'm by myself. Diesel's on vacation this week, so I will be glad to give you a mulligan in this case. Also, if you want to co-host a little bit, since I'm solo, call in. Let's go at it. Let's co-host a little bit. I am by myself all week. If you think you've got it, or if you think you've got what it takes to co-host the show, would love to hear from you. 844-FAN-PHONE. That's FANFONE. Let's get back to some of the headlines we missed earlier. A lot happened over the weekend. And it was a busy weekend, even though things are slowing down from an in-state perspective, a lot going on. You do have a little NHL tonight. The Canadiens battle the Sabres in a series that's tied 3-3. I don't know how many of you Tolos are NHL fans following the NHL. Let me know if you are on the Joy Law Firm text line. I have watched, I think, one NHL game this season. I will be watching Spurs Thunder tonight. I think that's a really intriguing Western Conference Finals, and I'm excited for it. They're talking about it right now on ESPN. I think it's Tim McMahon live on location, senior writer for I believe it's ESPN, who's there at the game covering that one. That should be a lot of fun tonight, 8:30 p.m. But Canadian Sabres tonight, series tied at 3-3. Also, Landon Powell and North Greenville season came to an end this past weekend. The Trailblazers finished the season 49-12. North Greenville lost twice to Francis Marion over the weekend in the Tigerville Regional. 2 tough losses. Pretty high-scoring games, too. And it's weird because North Greenville beat Francis Marion earlier in the season, so a tough loss for them. I am seeing some breaking news on ESPN that Jalen Williams is expected to play tonight. You heard Grayson Mann and I earlier in the show talking about how impressive it was that he hadn't played. It looks as if the Thunder's second-best player will play tonight. Let's see what Tim McMahon's saying about that.
As he was campaigning for the award, and SGA respects it. He says basically he's an extreme competitor, and to achieve the things that Wimpy's trying to achieve, that SGA is trying to achieve, frankly has achieved, you have to have that kind of super confidence in yourself, as SGA put it. And look, he's not adding any fuel to the fire in terms of motivation for Wimby. He says, we understand what kind of challenge this is. This guy presents things that nobody else ever has in the league before.
Tim McMahon doing a stand-up for ESPN while the national anthem is the warm-up, the first national anthem while they're warming up for the real thing. So that one should be a lot of fun tonight. Again, SGA did win the second straight MVP, SGA won first place by a large margin. He had 939 points. Jokic came in second. Wemby came in third, and Luka came in fourth in the NBA MVP voting results. Also, South Carolina softball, their season comes to an end. The Lady Gamecocks finished the season 32-28 on the season, 7-17 in SEC play after losing twice to UCLA over the weekend in their regional. So another in-state team coming, or their season coming to an end. For the baseball, Monty Lee and the Gamecocks finished the regular season not good, 22-24, a rough season, as we all know, for Monty Lee and the Gamecocks, but they finished 7-23 in SEC play. They won 6 games last year in SEC play, and they've won 7 this year. So 2 years in a row, the Monty Lee experiment on the tail end of the Palmetto experiment totaled 13 SEC wins for South Carolina baseball. Again, 7-23. They will play Tennessee tomorrow in Hoover, Alabama, but I don't think anyone really expects South Carolina's season to last much longer. We'll see. Tennessee's a top 25 team, I believe 23 in the country now. I think it's going to be a tough hill to climb if you are South Carolina in Hoover, Alabama. It looks like it's pretty much all but wrapped up. Let's see here. John Rittman, Clemson softball season came to an end over the weekend with 2 losses in the NCAA regional, one to UNCG and the other to Georgia. The Tigers finished the season 34-22 and 13-11 in ACC play. Clemson baseball will end the regular season 31-25, 10-20 in ACC play. The Tigers lost 2 of 3 to Virginia Tech over the weekend. Clemson will play Notre Dame tomorrow in the ACC tournament in Charlotte. I'll tell you this, not to be Debbie Downer, I can't recall a spring where spring sports in our state were so bad. Now, I know you had teams that were good, like Coastal was good, North Greenville was good. They always are. But I'm talking about the 2 major schools, Clemson and South Carolina, both horrific in 2026. Just bad. I mean, South Carolina baseball, abysmal. Clemson baseball, for the first time under Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I'm watching ESPN Aaron Rodgers at Steelers OTA. So that the Aaron Rodgers name popped in my head. Clemson baseball for the first time under Eric Bakich. Just a horrible season. And then both softball programs, neither softball program really hitting their stride this season. A tough year for both of them. So, one of those years you just want to flush if you're a Clemson or South Carolina baseball fan when it comes to spring sports. Also want to say good luck to several area teams tonight in high school baseball and softball playoffs. Chesney softball is on the road at Saluda. Boiling Springs softball on the road at Burns tonight. Big upper state championship matchups. Chesney baseball's on the road at Batesburg, Leesville. Chapman baseball will host Woodruff tonight. So a big one up in Inman tonight between Chapman and Woodruff. In Pennsylvania, until Sunday, Aaron Rye was best known for being the PGA Tour golfer who played with 2 gloves. Now, Rye will be remembered as the first English-born golfer to win the PGA Championship in more than a century after his stunning victory at Aronimink Golf Club. Tolos, did you watch the PGA Championship yesterday or over the weekend? I didn't watch much on Saturday. Thursday and Friday watched a good bit as Diesel and I were here in the studio, but Saturday didn't get to watch much, a little bit. Watched a good bit yesterday, and I thought yesterday was pretty good. I know some of the golfers complained about the pin locations and how things were difficult, but I thought it was a pretty good Sunday of golf. The New Orleans Pelicans hiring former Orlando Magic coach Jamal Mosley as the franchise's new coach on a 5-year contract, sources told ESPN on Monday. Also, some local news here in our Daily Wire. Spartanburg High School has named Caleb Gaither its next head boys basketball coach. Gaither served as AD at Northwestern. He also served as the head coach of the Vikings in 2022 for 1 season. One more local note, Spartanburg Christian Academy has named Sam Clark its next head boys basketball coach. Clark previously served as an assistant coach under Lane Fowler at Burns High School. Clark will replace Ben Johnson, who left SCA for Southside Christian. earlier this year. Tonight in the NBA, I mentioned that the Western Conference Finals begin. Spurs taking on the Thunder. Last night in the NBA, the Cavs defeated the Pistons 125-94 to win the series and advance to the Eastern Conference Finals. The Braves have an 8-game lead in the NL East over the second-placed Philadelphia Phillies, who are, I hate to say this, looking a lot better. The Phillies are starting to look like a good baseball team, new manager. And after taking 2 of 3 from the Red Sox, the Braves are right back in action tonight in Miami. Atlanta now 32-15 on the season. The Marlins are 21-26, and it's J.R. Ritchie on the mound tonight for the Bravos. That is a 6:40 first pitch. So about 30 minutes from right now, the second game will be the Braves-Marlins tonight. Guardians-Tigers already underway, but it is delayed at a score of 0-0. So we'll see if the Braves can continue in their winning ways. Hopefully they can. Let's get to a little audio we didn't get to in the very first segment. How about Trick Williams? Gamecock fans, do you know who Trick Williams is? Former Gamecock football player. Do you remember Trick Williams? Why is he being talked about now? Well, he's in the WWE. Any interest there? So Trick Williams now in WWE, pretty cool story there. I mean, it really is. For him to have been a walk-on, you heard a story there. Now, if you are a WWE fan, you probably obviously know who he is. I'm not, but I still know who he is. But awesome story. You love hearing a good story, even if it is in a sport that you don't, or not a sport. WWE is not a sport, so I don't know what you call it in a entertainment business that you don't watch. Let's go to the PGA Championship yesterday. Scotty Scheffler and a few others complaining. What was Scotty complaining about? Well, the pin. Just challenging, he says. Just challenging. Well, Scotty, I got news for you. I think, I don't know, you're the professional. You tell me. I think golf is supposed to be somewhat challenging. So we'll see. But there was a lot of complaining. Let's go to Rory talking about the bunched leaderboard. Not just Scotty, but Rory complaining a little bit. So Rory, not a fan of the setups, as you heard, even though he calls them the sit-ups, right? Because of his accent. The sit-ups, the setup. Most people aren't fan. I'm not a fan of a sit-up either, Rory. But Scotty, Rory, not really happy about the way things went over. They both played well, though. I mean, both of them played pretty good. How about this audio? A wild ending in Atlanta on Saturday night. The Braves almost won. Red Sox pulled it out on Saturday. The Braves pulled it out on Friday. Really competitive series, though, on the first 2 days, Thursday or Friday and Saturday, as it went into extra innings on Friday night. A good performance, though. Chapman still got it. The Red Sox are tough in areas, and even though they're not a good team this year, they're still tough in areas. So good win for the Braves, 2 of 3. Here's a Drake Baldwin home run for you. He's just been so good this year. He's just been so good. And again, we've talked about what happens with Murphy, and Murphy's on the IL. I mean, he's had some injuries. So Baldwin's been good. It's a good problem to have, but it's making things tough because that's a good player that's not making near as much money, and I mean near as much money as Sean Murphy's making. So that'll be fun to watch over the next few months. But the Braves are winning, so hopefully they can continue in their winning ways tonight. Again, the Marlins here in a little bit, about 20 minutes from right now. In case you missed it earlier in the show, Grayson Mann, TigerNet.com. We'll have that conversation for you next.